Did you think it was? flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web, keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent.
Okay, we should be on now. I just want to see it. Can you all in chat hear me? We'll start in 1 minute. I just want to make sure all the audio is fine. I'm going to be really nervous. It's actually lockpicking I'm more comfortable with doing this while I do know my stuff, because it involves coding and terminal stuff. Makes me super nervous, so just bear with me. But I just want to make sure that you can all hear me. So the stream's catching up now, and then I'll be able to continue. Yes, okay, so hello everyone. This has been a show a long time in the making. Welcome to Crypto Barons. To introduce myself, I am Sidepocket. I'm one of the co-founders of DEFCON 201. Hey Satan, my ninjas. The loud Frankenstein foot stomps you're going to hear going by is the other co-founder, G.I. Jack, because we all went nuts and decided, hey, we actually like each other so much we'll hang around. And this is one of my shows. Now, you're probably used to me being on every other Sunday with the Master of Unlocking, where I do lockpicks and stuff. This show is called Crypto Barons, as you can see with the logo, and it is all about cryptocurrency and blockchain. Now, before you change the tune or the channel, let me explain, and then I'm also going to explain what that bar is on the top of the stream here. So, I'm a big fan. I like cryptocurrencies. I dabble in them. I'm not like a big investment trader or anything. I just think it's a cool, neat little thing to do on the internet. And it sort of shows a blueprint, in my opinion, of where things are about to go. Like, I'm not going to say my age on air yet, but I grew up mainly in like a bit of the late 80s, but mostly the 90s. And I remember when like the concept of the credit card and the ATM machine was still new in people's brain. And everyone's like, oh, there's no way everyone's going to use this thing. And then it's like, yes, everyone does use this thing. So I honestly believe that eventually the technology behind cryptocurrencies and blockchain will reach that same point. However, what's happened with cryptocurrency and blockchain is just like what happened with privacy, where or privacy, if you are from the UK, privacy is that when, especially in the realm of privacy, let's use that as an example, when Mark Zuckerberg was brought into the United States and questioned deeply, it created this whole paradigm where companies like Facebook and Microsoft and every single big or small company and organization now claims that they are private, privacy-oriented, secure, and has your data. Of course, all of them can't be, and even if they have, there's a lot of really bad implementations out there. See, for example, Zoom. And also, like Zoom, companies can change their mind even if their initial standpoint was to be privacy-oriented. And so what that's done is, unfortunately, it's taken a great term such as digital privacy or digital security and has made it into what we like to call a snake oil term, meaning that since every company out there advertises as privacy, nobody knows what exactly is privacy oriented, because everything claims that it is privacy. So people use things like Facebook Messenger and Zoom and stuff like that, and come to realize that, oh, this is actually not as privacy-oriented as they detailed it, or what they say is privacy is not my definition of it, which is why it's important, for example, of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the EFF, and groups like ours, which is a subdivision of the EFF called the Electronic Frontier Alliance. We're one of the many members, to put out guides and notifications on what is privacy and what is not. Well, what does this have to do about cryptocurrency? The same things that have happened in the privacy world is the same thing that has happened with cryptocurrency and blockchain. I mean, how many times have you gone to a tech convention or seen a webinar online and someone brings up, usually in the word salad of other terrible snake oil terms such as mitigation, serverless, cloud, and stuff like that, which are all real technologies, but again, this type of word salad, where someone has brought up blockchain and over half of the room just rolls their eyes and passes out just by the mere mention of it. we all know why. It's because while initially technology people started off blockchain and things like that, so many investment people who are not really in it for like the interesting or useful implementation of these technologies, but are more like, what's that word? Hold on, there's like, I have a cough in my throat. Hang on a second. Yes, libertarians. There we go. That's really got stuck in. Let me drink some water for that. Also, if you ever watch my streams and wonder why this is so cloudy, it's because I put lemon juice in it. Add a little bit of flavor to the wonderful copper flavor of New Jersey water. Where was I? But yeah, because there's a bunch of snake oil investors and bankers and all sorts of terrible people who are now using the term blockchain in order to ensnare investment into their startup or ensnare other investors into their practices. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies are basically have become snake oil terms. Everyone's using them. Your vacuum cleaner, they're trying to put blockchain in. Your girlfriend has blockchain and cryptocurrency oriented, or boyfriend, or whoever your partner is, and this whole thing's become a mess. So unlike before, where people were kind of asking, well, what is a blockchain and cryptocurrency? The question kind of is now of, well, what do I use? Which cryptocurrency do I start out with? But probably not Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is like $8 billion. So what do I do? Nobody knows, because there's so many cryptocurrencies out there that nobody knows where to start. And that's where we also get the term shitcoins from, because there's so many cryptocurrencies that are starting up all over time, whether they're from China or just people from Montana or whatever, that there is no guide for this. And I was sick and tired of seeing investment bankers. And for example, we follow a show on DLive, and everyone who's on DLive, by the way, hi out there, please send us some lemons. The third episode, which will be in July, we're actually going to go over the DLive platform and its own cryptocurrency system and how that works, and weird hacks that I had to do in order to get its weird multi-function layer system to work. But I was sick and tired of seeing investment bankers and stocking and money being shoved under the mattress stuffers, all talking about cryptocurrency, and I could barely find anything about cool ways that blockchain is implemented, clear instructions on what a blockchain is, what are cryptocurrencies, overviews of cryptocurrencies that, while may include market data, actually include like what makes them individually unique about the chain or methods itself and how it's technologically achieved, stuff like that. So I figured that instead of complaining about it, I'd just make a show that details it. And that's why you're here with Crypto Barons. I'm going to get into a bit what blockchain, what cryptocurrencies are, what blockchain is, and then we're going to really pray to the demo gods about the coding, because I have a weird way around it. That was part of the delay. We're also going to pray that when I do fire up the blockchain on this machine, that the whole motherboard on this doesn't melt, because trust me, the fans are already kind of kicking in, screaming. Wait till you see this thing running, and you'll kind of realize why Bitcoin's as slow as it is. But before we get into that, I do want to bring up that we are, all the way until July, we are doing, if you remember last month, we have been trying to fight COVID. One, because it's the right thing to do, and two, is we don't want people to get sick, and two is that we want hackers to actually contribute to fighting for a really good cause, and we also want this whole thing to be over and people to not just like wear their mask underneath their nose, and we can all meet in person again and drink and eat sandwiches and play retro video games and have fun like we normally do at Subculture, which is the place we meet at in Jersey City the third Friday of every month, which is why we've been doing digital stuff, such as our upcoming show on the 19th. However, so in vein of that, we decided to do a donation drive directly through our streams through Fred Hutch, which is normally a cancer institution that was doing COVID-19 research. And we set the bar super low. We said $200. And in the span of 5 shows, somehow, we managed to hit our $200 goal. Now, a big thing of that is, and I'll read the comment in a moment, part of that, I definitely have to shout out to all of the people who run the current shows, such as G.I. Jack's new show, Arch Violin's Perspective, and a huge shout out to N Commander, who has Hack Alt N Commander, which will also be happening next Wednesday, and part of the $100 goal is when we reach that point, we're going to torture him, and then, because we hit $200, we're now going to do a live special about it. So we decided, okay, so we can actually bring in the moolah for great organizations. And by the way we handle it is through a program called Tiltify. We do not physically hand the money. Any amount, even if we don't make our goal, immediately forwards over to whatever charity we decide to do. So we were like, oh, okay, cool. Next month it's June. Pride, unfortunately, is canceled in New York and probably New Jersey, even though ours starts in August. So we're like, hey, let's just do an LGBT-themed charity thing, and we're looking at a bunch. And then, as you probably turned on the news or on YouTube or checked out Twitch TV woke channel, there was some terrible police brutality that was really frightening, and everyone decided to literally follow the lyrics to "We're Not Going to Take It" and marched out there, which then caused the Orange, that is currently our president, to pass an executive order basically saying, hey, we as the government control the internet now. We're going to have the public stop censoring us by censoring them, immediately followed by consolidating all policing organizations into one banner under the White House, so we are essentially a police state. Sorry to get political on you, but it's a cryptocurrency show. Of course it's political, never mind hacking. So we were like, oh, crap. And we were like, well, this is a great Pride celebration because Pride was originally a giant riot protest, so why not? So we restarted to look into stuff, and short story short, I just did that one again, short story short. That actually has a history behind that. Long story short, we are raising money for the Trevor Project, which is a very awesome organization. You probably know them through the Trevor Suicide Hotline. Their main thing is to reach out to LGBTQ people, especially LGBTQ people. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and others on all the different spectrums here of sexuality and preference, because they have that, as never mind just people of color, minorities in general, have high suicide rates. So we are raising money towards that. So we're doubling our end goal. It's going to be $400, and I'm going to put the details about that in the chat. Now, if you have 50s and 100s, and don't worry, we're going to get into the cryptocurrency stuff in a moment, so don't tune away yet. If you are loaded, please donate to this. Again, it goes to mental health. It goes to LGBTQ people, and they have been big supporters of Black Lives Matter, and so they really reach out to LGBTQ people of color. So, if you have the money, do it. I'm currently very broke right now. You could ask all the other DEFCON 201 members, so I know what it's like. But if you have $1, if you have $3, if you have $5, $10, if you're super lucky, unlike me, you can donate any amount. And again, even if we don't reach our $400 goal, that will automatically be donated through the wonderful folks at Tiltify directly to the Trevor Project, which will help LGBTQ youth again, and particularly LGBT youth and people of color, many who are being beaten up and arrested by the police right now, never mind forever. So for those who are on Twitch, you can scroll down under our profile, and you don't have to leave the video. We have a widget right there in our profile that allows you to donate directly. For all of you guys out there, like on DLive, which again, hi on DLive, please send us lemons, as well as Mixer, hi Microsoft overlords, and YouTube, hi platform that constantly censors us and replaces our video with crazy alt-right conspiracy theories. Here's the direct link in the chat. And before I go on, someone wrote a great comment here. 3 blue, 1 brown, shout out some really good math-oriented explanations of how blockchains and cryptocurrencies work. Yes, I'm actually going to, I don't know if they're broadcasting right now, but usually we forward everyone to the Woke Twitch channel just so that everyone can keep updated on what's going on with all the craziness out there. But if they're actually broadcasting, we will raid their channel and see if they accept. Also, someone asked, why am I wearing a... See, it's a camera. Why am I wearing a HushCon shirt? This is from last year's HushCon. Sarah, one of our members, Sarah, actually went to HushCon and brought back a bunch of shirts, and they're really awesome. I went to the first one that was in New York City, and I've been forwarding to people ever since. There were supposed to be 2 major hacker conferences this month. There was supposed to be HushCon, which is an invite-only thing, as well as SummerCon. And unfortunately, HushCon got canceled. Hi, Zickboy, I'm going to pronounce your one as an I in your username, but hi there. HushCon itself had to flat out cancel, and SummerCon just scrapped their whole programming and just did literally a couple hours ago an amazing live stream of just like 7 hours of crazy content. And that's my drink to them, so I'm just kind of representing here. I was supposed to go to both of these this year, but unfortunately, things happened. And again, if you have $1, $5, $10, if you're amazing, $20, $50, you can donate to the Trevor Project. If you're on Twitch, you can scroll below this feed and see the donation button. And if you are on a different platform, we just posted in chat the direct link to there. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go into some more explanations of what's going to go on this show and what I'm going to talk about on this first episode. So the more I get nervous, the more I dehydrate. So again, this show is about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies from a technological perspective. We will bring up markets and communities and stuff, but we're going to really focus on the technology aspects here. I usually try to explain things to people like they're 5. Yay, gay hackers unite. I stand for that. I say my ninjas. Ooh, I'm getting, see, I'm like going, because of all the coding, and I have a cheat that's going to make any commander disappointed, but you guys, I think, will enjoy this, provided that the motherboard on this computer doesn't overheat. So, which it will. I mean, I don't want it to crash, because unfortunately I don't run like a super huge unit here. We're working on that. Anyhow, I explain everything at a very basic level, and then I sort of try to ramp it up, and we will get technical, but anytime I try to flex any of the weak technical muscles I have, I always make sure that when I type in code or copy and paste code, that, yes, nobody cares. No one should care what your looks or bodies or anything are like, just like Lord Blankenship said. It's all about the mind, and that's what the internet is a huge collections of brains. So that's what we should be focused on. Unfortunately, the oldest operating system on the planet is the human brain. Has not been upgraded since 1.2 million years ago. and so we're stuck with this bull crap. So that's why we have to raise money for stuff like the Trevor Project to make sure our homeless LGBT youths and suicidal people of color have a resource to go to, because our society is not providing one for them. Anyhow, blockchain stuff. So we're going to explain it like this. So here's the best example. Let me go down definitions. So I'm going to start with actually cryptocurrency, and then we're going to go a bit into blockchain. So cryptocurrencies, you probably have heard about them everywhere. And yes, we are going back to the Stone Age, essentially. If you've ever seen New Jersey, that's what we basically are. And you probably want to know what they are. Well, cryptocurrencies is a data storage system. This is the best way I can describe it. It's a data storage system that uses blockchain technology to store data, to keep records of that data, and add layers of security to that data so that it is ridiculously hard to tamper with. So that's what that is. There's a mistake that cryptocurrency automatically equals money, but if you read the original Satoshi paper, as well as if you've seen other implementations of cryptocurrency and blockchain projects, and there will be future episodes where we'll go into that, you will quickly realize that all a coin is in a cryptocurrency is a piece of data. It's a recorded piece of data. That data can literally be anything. That's why we have like different, all these different platforms. There's going to be a future episode, for example, on Namecoin, which is a way to store data, and its primary way of storing data is going to be, oh, sure, yeah, Jack just gave me an upgrade. Thank you, Jack.
Bring that back at the end of the show.
That's fine, yeah. I think this will be my thing, yeah. We're rocking the blockchain. Where did you get this from again?
Caesar.
From, I mean, like, where? Like,
just
which?
hanging out.
Oh, just hanging out? You weren't, like, at, like, a con or a thing?
Not Caesar.
Oh, okay. No, I know it's Caesar. I just didn't know if you, like, ran into him at a bar, or if you're, okay. But, yeah, this is, so, when you're drunk, or if you talk to people in Hoboken, this is what they think a blockchain actually is. The cinder block on the chain here. Thank you, Caesar, for donating this to us. I guess I will attempt to wear this every episode until I die. But yeah, as you're going to see in the future, there's a platform, for example, called, and don't worry, it's not going to be all talking head. We're going to go into code in a moment. Where was I? There's for example, a platform called Namecoin where you could store any data. That's why the chain is so huge, into Namecoin. Yes, POA_NYC on Twitter. It makes this type of chain if you're interested, as I hit myself with it, because that's what crypto barons are all about. So, Yeah, or Namecoin, where, for example, you can register website data through Namecoin, and that's actually how a blockchain darknet called Zero Net works, and that will actually be a future episode. So as a reminder, when we say the term coin, a coin is just a piece of data that's recorded. Now, this is kind of fascinating because, well, how do you get a currency out of a cryptocurrency? Well, funny enough, it pretty much works exactly like real-life money. There's a whole philosophical and cultural sociological studies that are being done and have been done about money systems and value systems. And so, for example, unfortunately, I'm broke, so I don't have one with me, but actually, let me get up for 1 second. I'm not going to go away from keyboard because there should be one right here. Here we go. So, let's say you have this piece of metal. In the United States, we call, because the head's upside down, that's what she said, this is called a quarter. It is a sandwich of nickel with copper in the middle, super pressed together and imprinted in such a way that identifies this as a quarter. Back in the day, precious metals like gold, silver, and other things were used that. Before that, there was a bartering system, essentially, so a lot of original currencies like seashells and stuff became that value. And that's the thing. The way currency works is you have a tangible object. In this case, it could be physical or digital, but you have a tangible thing that exists, and then we subscribe value to that. And that's also part of like pricing in stock markets. So honestly, this is actually really not worth anything. It's not even worth, because we got away from like gold standards or even nickel or copper standards to some degree, the value that we perceive nickel and copper to be. What this is instead is a token that represents a value that all of us in society has agreed on. This is actually how the paper cash system works. The original dollar bills were actually literal banknotes that represented how much gold you either had on you in your household, or, which is what happened in the future, is usually by gunpoint, a consolidation of gold into one area that represented that value. For example, Fort Knox, that has a crap ton of gold in it, is supposed to represent how much value the United States has. We later on, and this shows you how value systems can be changed and manipulated all the time, decided, you know what, to save ourselves from terrible debt and not end up in a Great Depression again, which, hint, we're going to have that shortly, because we're right now, it's officially called in the Trump recession. I can talk about that later. Real quick, I'm newish to this group and just arrived on the stream. I'm Sidepocket. Recap real quick. I'm the co-founder of DEFCON 201. In the other room, who gave me his awesome literal blockchain, is G.I. Jack. We both have co-founded a group called DEFCON 201. You can see below on our stream the www.defcon201.org. We normally meet up third Friday of every month to hang out and talk about awesome hacker stuff and drink and eat sandwiches and have fun. But because of COVID and the fact that the cops want to beat anyone with a face, we've been virtualizing all of our meetups, and we decided, hey, if we have these streaming platforms, we might as well also do crazy shows that are topics of our interest. I normally do a lockpicking thing, and now I'm introducing a new show that's about cryptocurrency and blockchain. So back to the perceived thing of value. Literally, to save our, thank you, Olden3T guy. If you haven't subscribed to us, you can actually hit the, not subscribe, you can follow us. We don't have a subscription thing yet. And for some reason, someone just donated $10, and the notification somehow did not happen. Hang on, let me do that. Okay, I either was just so distracted I miss it, or it didn't show up. But in a moment, I will dig through the feed, and maybe at the end, and I'll shout out. Normally, we're supposed to have notifications when someone donates, but I'm the only one who can get them to work. But if you do donate, I will read them on air, and we're also going to add more incentives later on this month if you donate. Whoever donated that, anonymous person donated $10. Thank you so much, Anonymous. I don't know if you're the guys who are stealing police radios and playing Chocolate Rain on them type of Anonymous, or it's just the default when you donate something and you click on the name Anonymous. But thank you, Anonymous, for donating that $10 to help LGBT and people of color youth not be more suicidal, because look outside. It's tough not to be. But back to the value system. So in a shocking move in, I want to say, the 70s, because I was drinking too much yesterday, a terrible president that's not related to, but business-wise related to our current terrible president, decided, I believe it might be Reagan, it's either Nixon or Reagan. To me, they all look the same. They're all liars. Basically said, hey, to save us from going to ruin again, we're just going to move away from the gold standard, which means our dollar bills and these coins, these token coins, now represent whatever the heck we think they are. And that didn't also help that you also have a concept called interest, which is what banking. Let me just type something in here. Which is what banking institutions with the introduction to credit and debit came up with. So that shows you right there that despite literally having a physical metal and paper objects and physical gold bricks backing it up, all value is what's in our head. And it's the same exact thing with cryptocurrency. The data on the blockchain technically means nothing. It literally doesn't. The reason why we think Bitcoin is worth $11 billion is because a bunch of snake oil business people, including pot-smoking Elon Musk, and even, I don't even know what chemicals John McAfee is doing or having sex with or whatever, has decided that's what that value is. And that's true of all form of blockchain technology. It works cryptocurrency tech. It works exactly like the way our real value system does. Let me see. I'd rather support the ords that don't technically support systematic racism. Yes, I will say one of the reasons why we did choose the Trevor Project, for those who are interested, and again, if anyone wants to donate money, and hopefully our alerts work, you can donate $1, $5, $10. If you're loaded, just pile everything on. If we do 400, I will announce this on N Commander Show, but if we get to 400, we're going to do a complete special thing. Yes. Unfortunately, humpback whales are not a cryptocurrency. Although, funny you bring that up, whale blubber for a long time in indigenous communities, especially to the Inuit, was literally a physical value of currency. It started off as bartering and literally became a form of currency. And then I'm going to eventually do ones on the history of currency. I'm just doing this quick crackdown here for that. And even to modern day, a lot of whale lipid oil as well as baleen is used in a lot of products that are really expensive that we pay real money for. For instance, if you buy most perfumes, they literally have cud whale vomit in them. And it's one of the most if you have like an ounce of that, you can literally buy a house, a physical house in New York. That's how much it's still worth today. Never mind back in the day. And again, this really shows you how value systems sort of work there. So as just recap, so cryptocurrency is a data logging system that uses blockchain technology in order to, one, store the data, two, basically form the data into a system that makes sense, what's kind of known as a ledger, which we will detail about in a moment. And because, remember, crypto, if you remember this thing that people forgot about called cryptography, that's a whole thing where it's, disguising your data and stuff. So that way people who are just, want to peer in with their eyes just don't take it from you. And one of our members, Sarah Cell, just walked by. That's who I'm waving to. That we add layers of security that's built into default blockchain technology to secure that data. That's what a cryptocurrency is. It is not technically money. You can use the coin tokens in cryptocurrency as a form, again, currency, but it doesn't have to be. And the reason why is, let's get into what blockchain technology is. So, I'm trying to think of which description I should do first. So just give me one moment. If anyone has any questions in chat, just let me know, or things that you want to shout out that I can shout out on here. Again, don't worry. After I'm done explaining what a blockchain is, we're going to go directly into, you're going to watch me suffer in the copy pasta. I'll give you a hint of how I'm doing this. And we're going to see, provided that my computer does not crash, how a blockchain works and how a cryptocurrency system could work with the way it stores data and stuff. So, blockchain itself, And again, if you have any questions, I'll do it on the fly. And again, if you donate money to the Trevor Project, whether it's $1, $5, $10, $20, $1 billion, please do. We will shout you out on air and worship you forever. Yep, the hydration gang. I'm actually going to have to, probably when we get to the code, we're going to take a small break, and I'm going to reload this, and then we're going to get into the actual code. But I want to explain what a blockchain is first. So, blockchain, you've heard it everywhere, especially if you hung out in bars at Hoboken or Jersey City downtown at the pet shop after 8 p.m., you have definitely heard of the term blockchain. What the heck is this? To use a modified quote from the Insane Clown Posse, or ICP, bleeping magnets, how they work? Well, it's bleeping blockchain has it work. That's why we titled this episode that. So a blockchain is a type of system where when you set this up correctly in a coding environment, it sits basically on a network. When we do the coding example, it's going to be on a local network. For public chains, it's usually on interacting, usually because it's supposed to be, most of them are decentralized, peer-to-peer through computer systems, so there is network communication. But it's a way of essentially a blockchain is a list of data from a beginning chain, different blocks in that chain, and an end block, and each block contains a piece of data. That's what the actual token represents, a block on that data in a row, hence the term blockchain. And again, because of the cryptography methods behind it, as well as how it structures that chain, we've done both passive and active security in multiple forms in order to make that chain really difficult to break. So I'm going to tell you guys probably the best example overall of how a blockchain basically works. And it goes like this. And I unfortunately don't have these. Actually, wait a minute. Give me 1 second. I'm not going to go to AFK. I'm going to use a physical prop for this because I'm like a clown. I really love physical props. And I have this in my backpack. And apparently I can't find where my backpack is. It's in the living room. I did not have to move. I am incredibly dumb. I hope I get the dumbness out now and not during when I actually have to code. Here we go. So funny enough, I actually got these things at a computer hacker convention. So, here's the best way I can figure out how to describe blockchain here. Does anyone want to play a game here? I don't even know if this company still exists. Let's play a game. Wow, this box is kind of falling apart. But these things should still be good. Let's play a game of cards. So I'm going to... These stuck together. Huh. I didn't know, apparently you can hold a pack of cards for so long, they kind of get sticky. But oh well. I'll take the good cards. And you know, normally we would like shuffle the deck here with the cards. And we're going to play a game of cards. So I'm going to give you a couple of cards. I'm going to make a hand of 5 cards going on, you know, put that. Man, I didn't know the deck was going to be like this. Jeebus. You'd think a simple deck of cards, right? Let's add a couple more in here. So yeah, we're going to play a card game, so we're going to take a deck of cards, and we're going to hand everyone, let's see, 1, 2, 3... Although these are stuck together for some reason. There we go. Let's see, let's do 5 cards. So these are duplicates. So we're going to have a nice 5-card hand here. It doesn't matter what suits we play. Let's say we all have 5 cards. I'm not even going to say what game. If it's 5 cards, let's say we're doing poker. Now, normally, if this was a betting card game with our 5 cards, we would, you know, inspect. We'd be recreating Casino Royale, that book movie. And we'd like do some social engineering and poker faces and other Lady Gaga songs, and then throw our cards down, and someone's going to win. Now, when we put our bets in, how do we know that that person made a bet? Well, during a game like poker or other casino games, such as 21, aka Blackjack, or any other game, you would use tokens. Doesn't this sound familiar? Cryptocurrencies use tokens. And the data, the blocks in the blockchain, are usually done as tokens. But you would use physical tokens. So when that person won, all the tokens that were put in that pot, they would physically bring to their side. So one, you have confirmation that they actually won those tokens. And we also know, because everyone mutually agreed with the rules of this card game, and that they got those tokens, and we could physically see that. And no one, when they pulled the pot in that they won, took out a knife and stabbed in the middle of the table and start blaming people, and a fight broke out, and then the cops came in and you have a normal night in Hoboken. So that's how we know people win pots. That's also, we can see by our own stack of tokens how much we've betted on, and we can put those tokens in the main pot in order to bet, and if we win that ourselves, we would pull that pot in. So we literally use the tokens to know our progression in the game, everyone else's progression in the game, and by knowing that progression, we know who's eventually going to win or lose and the probability around that. Now, here's an issue. What if we wanted to play like a poker card game, but we had no tokens? Like, we don't even have coins. We literally just went, duh, and forgot to bring tokens. We don't have pennies lying around. What could we do to still keep the game running as a token system, but because we don't have tokens, we can't use individual mini objects to represent a winning piece that represents money? Again, that sounds like real-world money. What would we do? Well, someone would just grab a piece of paper and a pen, and we would all have pieces of paper and pen, and maybe one piece of paper in the middle as an overall thing, if we wanted to be centralized. But let's say we're decentralized. We all whip out pieces of paper and our pen. And what we're going to do is we're all going to agree that we brought X amount of tokens. So we would write on that paper, like, we all started out with, let's say, 200 tokens. And then what we do during the game is we have our cards, and then we're going to go, okay, I am going to put in, like, I feel confident. You don't know if I have a winning hand or not, but I feel confident. So I'm going to put in 30 of those tokens in. And maybe that's because everyone else put like 20 tokens in or 5 tokens in. So we all list our tokens. We can verify that by looking at our individual paper. And then we play our cards. And trust me, this is not made up. This is literally kind of how this basically works. But yeah. Zugboy kind of sums it up. It's just like real old money. I was getting to this, but we basically make stuff up and mutually agree. This is kind of how the blockchain kind of works and ledgers work, because that's what the piece of paper is, a ledger, and your pen is writing the rules of that ledger. We're going to do code to do that, aka the Federal Reserve, exactly. So again, I put in 30 tokens I write on here, everyone else does, and we play play our cards, and someone wins. I lost. I was trying to bluff and it failed. Well, what we do is that person won, so we took how many tokens that we wrote down, and then we do the math on them, which is our proof of work. That topic's going to come up later, and come to a total. And if we did the math correctly, and we're not trying to screw the pooch, everyone would have come up with the same group total of donated tokens, as well as then subtract them from the initial token set that we had, the 300, to get a new number from our tokens that we started off with. And that person then would write down, like on their scoreboard, I got the full amount of tokens and how much. Now, let's say 5 games in, we're doing the math on this, and someone's just like, wait a minute, I only did this, how this person won this much, this is horseshit, and wants to know, hey, someone just said that person cheated. This happens in Scrabble, for example, all the time. Well, what everyone would simply do is we would halt the game, and everyone would take out their physical pieces of paper, their ledger, and everyone would redo the proof of work or the math again. And again, if we all did this correctly, we would all come up with the same number. We would also probably have similar math equations. If it came out perfectly fine and everyone has the same values when we compare our ledgers together, guess what? That person's a liar. We should probably kick him out of our game, and he probably needs to see therapy. But if there was a change in the number, because we all can compare notes, the person who has the value that's wrong will be really obvious, and thus we will know the person who tried to fudge the numbers, and we will reward them by basically autographing their face with our fist. So that's how we would do a card game without actually having a betting card game without actual physical tokens. And what I literally just described there was both blockchain and a ledger. That's basically what a ledger is. If you've ever seen a physical paper ledger, that's what it is, except in terms of cryptocurrency, it's all code. Now, there's also a centralized and decentralized. A lot of cryptocurrencies, including technically Bitcoin, are all decentralized. That adds a layer of security. The reason is because, we've all had to do with the banking system. I'm going to take one last sip of this. So you're sort of like, okay, have you ever dealt with the bank and then you put your money in and it takes a week, or you get hacked and you don't hear from anyone even though you put in all the paperwork? Meanwhile, you're at negative $1 billion and all of that. And that's why people can't stand usually centralized systems. They're also really slow because they have to go through so many processes to do these. Now, that's not saying blockchain is slow. In fact, one of the negative aspects that we're going to see later on is that the longer your chain, that's what she said, but the longer your chain and the more data you have in each block on that chain, aka the bigger your blockchain and the longer the ledger, the more slow it's going to be because of the proof of work concept I'm going to completely explain. But what most cryptocurrencies do is, instead of, which would be a centralized system, of there being a ledger, one piece of paper that sits in the middle of everyone, and when anyone does a transaction, a third party would have to verify that ledger and then do processes for every single person that's connected to that ledger, aka Facebook's Libra, and we will do a future episode about that. Bitcoin, Litecoin, and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies are decentralized. So as I described in the poker game, what they do is everyone locally downloads a copy of that ledger wherever it's placed at. When you create a wallet and it says it's syncing to blocks, what it's doing is downloading the ledger to that. It's not necessarily downloading the data in the blocks per se, but it's downloading the entire transaction record. And again, the longer the ledger, or the longer the blockchain, and also the amount of data on that blockchain, the longer it's going to take to sync in that chain. So for example, when I actually had to do Namecoin, it's not even that Namecoin's ledger and chain is super long, but that because you can store any piece of data in a Namecoin, it is so freaking huge that despite having a medium power machine where, for example, when I set up most cryptocurrency wallets, they take barely an hour to sync at max. Like sometimes it takes me like 5 or 10 minutes. It's like, again, I don't have a monster unit here, but that's how that works. Namecoin literally took 4 days straight running it. I had to turn off all the sleep functions on the machine, and by the end of it, I could cook 4th of July barbecue on it. So that's an example of how long that chain and information can get. I do not know how long the Bitcoin ledger is. I don't want to know. All I can imagine is if the Bitcoin ledger was a guy's lower half in a prison shower, I would, A, run away from that man, and 2, also suggest that we escape together to use his massive thing to pull over the walls. That's how big the ledger is. And in fact, which is something we will get into later when we talk about the different splits and stuff of Bitcoin, you probably have heard of the whole Bitcoin folding value thing. That kind of adds to that. It's like the Titanic. If you make something long enough, it will eventually fracture because of the weight underneath it and split. That's kind of what happened during the folding, so we'll get into that momentarily. But back to decentralized ledgers. So when you make a cryptocurrency wallet, no matter what coin, it could be Pinkcoin, Gridcoin, and Gridcoin actually is a very interesting way around it that we'll show off next episode. When it says that it's syncing blocks, it's actually downloading the entire ledger of all the transactions that happen. Once you are sync or basically up to date with all the transactions, it will now be able to process the cryptocurrency tokens in your wallet, because if you did so before then, that would be a huge security flaw, because then you can make up any sort of value and stuff, and then what would be the point of the blockchain? So that's kind of how that syncing works. And again, what you do is it's kind of like, again, the whole light description, where you ever hear a scientist, like let's say in grade school, or you watch Bill Nye the Science Guy back in the day, they would say this mantra, which is very much true of, we don't see things, we see light bouncing off of things. Well, when you send someone cryptocurrency, you're not actually sending the data of those individual tokens directly to that person. It's not the way if I have a quarter and I'm like, hey, you want 25 cents? They're like, sure, you're good looking. And I place the physical quarter in their hand, and I physically have nothing in my hand, and I have something there. What you're actually doing is you're rewriting and changing the ledger. If there is certain data on that block, you are sending that data, but you're not necessarily sending the block over. So that's basically how that works. What you're doing is you are redoing that ledger. Now, part of the security on this is, okay, all right, so everyone can check each other's ledgers, especially in a decentralized thing. So we know if the math is off, the blockchain is invalid, and something is wrong, right? Just like we did in the poker game. How do we prevent people from just sneaking in extra tokens in our poker game and not having anyone notice? Well, what happens during a ledger is that as it's being, every time a new block is usually added, everything has to stop, and all the wallets that are decentralized linked have to basically recalculate the chain again. That recalculation is usually the proofs, and there's many different types. Bitcoin started off the whole proof of work, where what it does is put together a mathematical equation, usually a crypto hash, that it works out. And now that when people are done with that hash, and it usually takes it used to take like 10 minutes, but it goes up and down depending on how long the chain is. And again, Bitcoin's ridiculously long. What was I saying? So when it does that number hash, it then compares the results of the math to everyone, and if all the math checks out at everyone's rewriting of the ledger as well as the result, it knows it's done that. That's the proof of work, because your computer had to use CPU cycles to figure out that piece of math, and thus, like in school, you can't just enter the number in the calculator and show it. You have to prove that here's how you multiplied and crossed out numbers. That's what your computer's doing. And since everyone's now on the same page, it can now add everything to everyone's ledger. Basically, when it changed in the ledger, your ledger now keeps and everyone keeps. And that's how you add another block to the chain. It's part of the security aspect of it. Now, which we will go about in a future episode, and I can also bring up things. And again, if anyone has any questions, please let me know in chat. And if you have $1 or $5 or $10 to the Trevor Project, you can donate that to the Trevor Project once again, and I'll post the links here. Is a awesome group of people. We're going to be doing this up until 4th of July, who you probably know them through the Trevor Project suicide hotline, but they do a lot of things to prevent suicide prevention among LGBTQ people, and especially LGBTQ people of color, such as African Americans, Latinx people, Asians, Native Americans, etc. This is a terrific thing, especially with all the stuff going on between LGBTQ rights getting rolled back and black people getting beaten by the cops and actually being filmed and uploaded for once, so we can't look away. And everyone's mental health right now dealing with COVID, our parents, the fact that Java can't collect its garbage correctly, among other things. So for those who are on Twitch TV, you can scroll down and we have a widget where you can donate money, and you can donate any amount. If we don't hit our goal of 400, that's fine. Any money that's donated in, like the 30 right now, will immediately go to the Trevor Project through Tiltify, because we don't handle the money Tiltify has. Will go directly to there. So no matter how much you donate, you are contributing to a really great cause to prevent suicide prevention, particularly for LGBT youth and LGBTQ youth, people of color. If you're on something else like DLive, hi DLive, please send us lemons so that 2 episodes from now we can cover your projects. We have a couple of lemons, but more would be nice. For those who are on DLive and YouTube and Mixer, I put the link in the chat where you can donate directly to there. So let me finish up. Now I'm going to do a refill, and then I'm going to show in code what you don't normally see when you make a transaction on a application for this. So again, let's go over. So let's say you're going to start cryptocurrency. Let's say you're going to invest in DC201 coin, which I'm shocked is not a thing yet. There is a DEFCOin for DEFCON that are used for games, like the way an arcade token is used. And I think there's a game called Corneroids, and the Dark Badge project that I think both will be happening this year. That use, for example, that's another way, where it's not currency, where it's not like money, fiat currency, where you can use something on the blockchain. Real quick, someone asks, what profession has the highest suicide rate? I actually don't remember right now, but for me right now, in a couple of minutes, the highest profession is going to be Sidepocket attempting to do JavaScript code and Python code live and praying, 1, the demo gods work, and 2, that his system does not melt down. If I can, I will look up that question later, unless someone else wants to shout that on chat, or Jack has an epiphany and decides to tell me, or Saracel if he walks by. But because I'm very limited here, I will check that link out in a moment. I guess cops. I don't know. I've been told, which is, most jobs are difficult. I can imagine policing's a difficult job, but honestly, if I got pensions like the way they did, and if I could just shoot someone in the face and get like retirement fund money, I'd be perfectly good. I mean, I used to work in the medical profession, so you can imagine. And we barely we got things, but barely got things. Like a bunch of us wish we were cops compared to like the plans they get through their policing unit, so which really need to be changed if not destroyed. So yes, but back to the comparison. So for example, let's say okay, I want to be able to trade Litecoin. So you would download something on your desktop or your phone, what is called a wallet. In fact, I have a multi-wallet here on my phone that I pretty much use for everything called Coinomi, which allows you to have multiple wallets. It's okay, Zipboy. I'll check the link out later in a moment. Which is if you can see here, it basically allows you to do multiple cryptocurrency wallets at the same time. But this is what a wallet looks like. And what a wallet actually is it's basically a graphical user interface. Some of them you can also do with command line. So what your wallet actually does is it's basically the harbinger for the ledger, and it also contains personal details, which is part of that ledger of your send address, where like the address when people want to give you something they can send to. And actually, to bring up Coinomi again, let's just randomly go into one of the wallets. Let's go actually into Bitcoin itself, which currently is, if I remember correctly, rated at $9,478.85 USD. So even with the folding, if I had that money, I wouldn't be living in this section of New Jersey. Let me tell you that. And this blockchain would be made in, like, the chain would be made of gold instead of a cinder block. I would have a living human baby on it. That's how much the current one Bitcoin is. Just to note about Bitcoin, Bitcoin is so huge that you don't actually ever trade a full Bitcoin for that exact reason. What you do is you trade off slivers called Satoshi. So in the same way, you have it like $1, but $1 is a subsection or built up of 4 quarters or 10 dimes and stuff like that. A Satoshi is a sliver percentage of an entire Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is so huge that most people rarely ever trade an entire Bitcoin unless you're like, I don't know, the Rockefellers or something, or Chase Bank or whatever. Instead, you would do a small percentage of that. But like, so what your wallet has is it has the entire transaction of the ledger, and so you can see the current balance because it's checking that ledger of how much you have. And it also contains a piece of data, which I'm going to show here, to receive coins. So if you type that string in, or in a lot of wallet cases, you scan that QR code, and probably people are going to do that. I should actually put, every time I cover cryptocurrency, I should actually put the QR code for it here, but I digress. And that will be the address that if people send you coins, you'll be able to get that transaction and thus add it to the ledger and then compare it to everyone else. And if you want to send coins, it has a little form where you can either scan the QR code, type that wallet and the amount, and then that will update your ledger and everyone's ledger. Then the proof of work will happen, and then that will be achieved. So that's mainly what a wallet is. It's not like a physical wallet that has the physical tokens in it. It has a copy of the ledger, and in some cases a copy of the data that's in that ledger. That then compares to everyone else. Again, much like the way we don't see things, we see lights bouncing off of things. Your cryptocurrency wallet does not see the data that's actually in the blockchain. It sees the actual chain itself. That's the way that kind of works. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should bring up before I continue on, because I think that's mostly it as like a crash course that I can think of. If anyone has any other questions real quick about cryptocurrency or blockchain, or want to shout out something that I didn't cover that's basic, that's up to you. Oh, I probably should cover mining, and then we will go and we'll take a short break, and then we will go into code stuff, and like I will sacrifice an entire cow to the demo gods. So, or one Chris Christie, which I think is like 50 cows now. I don't know, because I could imagine that man eating 50 cows. Or crow, if we want to use the internet term. So, mining, what is that? Well, remember how I talked about the proof of work? And there's other proofs, again, like proof of stake, which is its own mathematical thing, because the problem with proof of work is it takes a lot of CPU, GPU, and RAM power in order to do this high-end cryptography computations on the blockchain. There's other ones like proof of work, proof of stake, where by staking or basically putting a foothold on the chain, it will instead validate that you put that hold on the chain, and thus that all the transactions are valid, which means when you do mine, you're only doing it through software. It doesn't need the hardware component to necessarily do it, or very minimal amount of hardware resources to make that stake calculation, and that's why staking is easier. Purportedly, staking is also less secure. I'm not here to argue that now. We're just here to try to figure out what blockchain and cryptocurrencies are. But with mining, so what happens is that if you have, and this is usually how it works, a certain amount of coins in your wallet, and you know how to make a node, you will program this node on the network, and basically all the ledgers will know that that node exists, and it will start just constantly churning out cryptography hashes or stake proofs and things like that. Saying stake proofs is making me really hungry right now, even though I'm going to have chicken for dinner. So when that happens, and again, so you point your ledger towards that, and if you have enough cryptocurrencies and you have enough CPU resources or software resources or coding skills or an actual physical blockchain or whatever, it will start doing those calculations and those proofs. When you keep doing those proofs, what will happen is that it will generate more chains on the block automatically, and usually to reward the person mining for that, for using the system resources and or time and or blood, sweat, or Java garbage in order to do that, it will take a portion of that block and then sign it to award that to the person who is doing the actual mining. So that's usually how the rewards happen. And there's many different ways to mine, and there's also many different reasons to mine. So for example, Bitcoin is just, it's kind of useless in terms of what it does when it does its proof of work. So that means when you actually solve a cryptographic hash in Bitcoin, it just disappears. It was literally just there to prove the coin, that your transaction itself. It was not there to do anything, so it just disappears forever. I mean, the action of it, the proof itself, will sit in the data piece on the chain, but you will not, it doesn't really go into anything. Next episode, we're going to cover a cryptocurrency, example, Gridcoin, where what's really cool about that is when you solve mathematical problems in Gridcoin, the actual mathematical problems are linked to a program called Rosetta at Home, which if you've ever heard of and I forgot the team number right now, but we have a folding at home version of this. Rosetta at Home is a sister to folding at home, where what it does is scientists submit protein forms, and with folding at home or Rosetta at Home, you normally give CPU and GPU resources, and it figures out the different folding patterns and protein processes, and then gives that data back. And thank you, Tech21 SE Cops, interesting name. Thank you for following us. See, that alert worked. I don't know why the donation ones didn't work. Bionic, yeah. So what Rosetta Home is a part of Bionic, and N Commander is probably just repeatedly face slamming his face. I don't know where I was going. Then Commander's probably slamming his face constantly into the keyboard, being angry about all the stuff I probably got wrong or didn't say. He's like really behaving now because he knows the more he tortures me, the more I'm going to come up with torture stuff for him. But there'll be a twist to that will happen on the next episode. I'd love to see his reaction for that. But anyhow, back to what I was saying. So Rosetta is a subsection of Bionic. It works very similar to the way Folding at Home does, where Rosetta, for Bionic, basically you do computing processes for different science projects. Rosetta is for protein folding and figuring out viruses and other medical issues in terms of pure calculations. Our Folding at Home team, which N Commander, thank you for posting in chat, is 241960. So if you type that into when you join Folding at Home, you will join our team, and we're actually in like the top 1000s thanks to you guys. So thank you, N Commander, for posting that number. We also have a Rosetta team, but I can't remember the link. But anyhow, so you know how I said with Bitcoin, when it makes those cryptographic hashes, the results and the computation that goes nowhere. Well, for example, in Gridcoin, your computational hashes, fighting words, actually contribute to the math that Rosetta at Home's doing. So literally by mining Gridcoin, which actually has a currency value you can spend on, that's what those tokens represent, instead of just those computations going nowhere, you're actually solving, for example, solving protein folding and other things to combat viruses like COVID-19, and getting monetary reward out of it. So that's a good example of using the proof of work function or a proof of stake function, but instead of just it being for pure financial reasons or for pure data reasons, actually goes to an important thing, whether it's trying to figure out the weather or developing entropy for an AI algorithm. There are many uses of these sort of cryptological works, and Before I go on break, I'm going to turn this camera around. And that is Cell. So if you hear loud noises, it's like I'm like a ninja when I walk around, and then you can kind of hear Cell, and then G.I. Jack is basically a retired thwomp from the Super Mario Brothers series.
So I got a question about Gridcoin, right?
Okay.
Can the grid coins be spent on computational tasks?
That I'm not sure of. Either that exists or it hasn't been invented yet. So I will actually look that up later because, again, just as a little preview, and Commander said something funny in chat. Our next episode is going to be about the way you can actually use cryptocurrency to make positive changes in the world, and we're going to be covering Pinkcoin and Gridcoin. So I'm going to put that on a thing to look up because I'm also with Gridcoin going to cover the way their blockchain works and faucets and things like that. And we're getting ahead of ourselves. Thank you, sir. So this is why I have him around, because he's just like, he talks in beeps and boops and is just a cool person to live with. Like, for real. I'm not saying that just because we're on camera. Although I am going to thank Jack for lending the blockchain. So again, that's basically how mining works. Oh, I would love to see you and Commander creating a bionic project from scratch. That would be a bunch of evil laughs. My only thing on that is when you do that, you have to cosplay as Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory so that when you do the evil laugh, they work. Okay, so we just went over what a blockchain is, how most blockchains are structured, and again, there's a lot of variance on this. Some are centralized, some use proof of stake instead of proof of work, and other proofs, some have different cryptological functions that it solves. We will cover those in a lot of future episodes, and I think you guys will be really impressed by the list. For example, again, the next episode we're going to do in 2 weeks will be about Pinkcoin and Gridcoin, which both actually contribute to things. So instead of just taking cryptocurrency monetary value just to be, I have the money and the chain, you can actually contribute that to society. But there's a lot of variance in that. So just to note, this is just very basic overall stuff. A lot of it's based on Bitcoin itself. So we just covered what a blockchain. I'll cosplay as DD. How about that? If you cosplay as Dexter and Commander, I'll cosplay as DD and annoy you on Discord. Wonderful drag. We covered how now he's not going to sleep tonight. But anyhow, and Commander's too distracting. We covered what a blockchain is, how basically how most blockchains are structured, the difference between centralized and decentralized ledgers, what the heck a ledger is, what mining is, and what a cryptocurrency is and represents, and how it goes together to relating to what most people say when they say cryptocurrency, which is a actual value-based system for the tokens, and also clarifying that the tokens can represent anything because they're literally just blocks of data. Before I go in, Commander asks, what about Electrum wallets and contracts? I am not going to go over that on today's episode. I will, however, be going over the... Yes, Neo would make a great old man Mandar and Commander. But we are going to go over Electrum wallets as well as contracts, smart contracts, and how people have also broken smart contracts, famously enough Monero, if I remember correctly, and the Lightning Network. We will be going over that in a very near future episode, so it might take a couple of weeks, but we are going to get there. So now that you have a great overview of what blockchain and cryptocurrency is, I'm going to play some chill music for a couple of minutes. We're going to take a break. I'm going to get water, go pee, throw myself off a cliff. And speaking of throwing myself off a cliff, we are going to now then attempt to use code, and you're going to see broken down how a blockchain works through code, and you're going to laugh at how bad my skills are, and hopefully everything will run, which is something that every programmer says but never achieves. So stay tuned. I will be right back, and we're going to go more through Crypto Barons. And again, while I'm away, if you want to follow this, we have many other shows such as Hack Alt and Commander, which is on every Wednesday at 8 p.m. G.I. Jack has his own show about Arch Linux and gaming on Arch Linux every other Thursday. I'm trying to think of the others. Sometimes we do specials. I have my Master of Unlocking that happens on every other Sunday at 8 p.m. I'm also doing Crypto Barons now. And on June 19th, we're going to have our own meetings. So we're going to do Team Hydration as well as Team Peeing and Team Crying Myself in the Corner because I'm about to use JavaScript. We will be right back. Enjoy the chill music. Crypto Barons will continue on. Oh, stand by. Can you like wear headphones or something?
At the end.
Okay, and we're back with a little bit of lag that I'm going to hopefully solve. If everyone can hear me, that's fine. Before I read some of the comments in here, again, welcome back to Crypto Barons. This is our first episode. Thank you for all who are watching out there, and thank you for all who have donated so far, which includes an anonymous donation of $10. So thank you, anonymous person. We are doing, by the way, real quick, a charity charity during all of our live streams up until July 4th. 4th of July, a great way to celebrate America's birthday and all the terribleness that came with that. I mean, we're patriotic here, just for just being realistic. Where we're trying to raise funds for the Trevor Project, which is a group that provides suicide prevention resources and mental health resources to LGBTQ people. That's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and all other people on the sexual and sexual identity as well as sexual preference spectrum, and they especially reach out to queer people of color, and they've been very pro Black Lives Matter, so I think everyone wins. And we do this through Tiltify. If you go to our main profile and scroll below on Twitch, you will find a widget below our profile where you can donate directly, and you can donate $1, $5, $10. You don't have to break the bank. If you can, that'd be great. We will love you forever and shout you out, and you might get a surprise reward when that happens. Kind of like what happened when we're going to torture N Commander later after we got $200 to donate to Fred Hutch. But if you have any bit of money, you can donate that in. And even if we don't meet our $400 goal by July 4th, all the money that will be sent will immediately be forwarded to the Trevor Project. And we thank all the hackers out there who are donating. So before we do the coding, because I'm trying to delay the inevitable here, let me do some questions possibly here in chat. And Commander's probably going to be torturing me. Python, yeah, we're going to look at a Python program in a moment. What does blockchain and JavaScript have in common? They both make processors cry in mercy. I did not know there was a class of humans called processors. I know that back in the day, like there was the term computer actually meant someone who does mathematical computation. But yeah, they make both people and computer cry. They also confuse people here. So let's see. This was blockchain secure boot that common, both abusers, and we're actually going to get into SH 256, just because again we're gonna attempt to make a simple one, and we'll show how that works here. So I just want to make sure that my desktop is all set up here. Let me just double check before I get into everything. Okay, so that's the way that goes. And okay, so I just wanted to make sure of some stuff here. So once again, we're going to go over this. And oh, real quick, before I go on, for anyone who is on DLive, first of all, thank you for watching on DLive. Please donate us some lemons, because on our third episode, we're actually going to go over the DLive platforms and the lemons and the BMs and the history behind DLive and how the whole platform works and all the weird hacks I actually had to do on my end to make it work, because it wasn't as simple as they made it out to be. But if you are on DLive, Mixer, or YouTube, or on Tor watching through YouTube, which we have the links for, here's the link in chat that I just posted where you can donate directly. And Commander just wrote, now I need to see if I can turn Sidepocket into an AX86 processor. I just need him to memorize the table of ops codes. You're going to see how I cheat in this, and one of the biggest problems is that I literally have like barely a kilobyte of memory. so that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm really terrified when I have to do programming in terminals, is because it's similar to, like, I know how to read, write, and speak in Japanese, but when it comes to writing Japanese, it takes me an hour to do each symbol, because like I get so nervous and I'm trying to rack my brain of what am I supposed to do, and how I'm very good at doing this, by the way, and like if I did everything correctly, that I just start freaking out like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Don't worry, I actually have backup order this time. So what we're going to attempt to do next, and pray that A, the program works, and B, that my computer does not overheat, is we're going to look at two coding examples of a blockchain. So as we recapped, I already described earlier in the episode what a blockchain actually is in terms of its how it's constructed. I've also told you what is a block, what's in a block. Oh, I forgot to wear the chain. This is an example of a block on the chain. Thank you, GI Jack, for temporarily donating this to me. And thank you, guy's name who made this thing. This is why I have show notes, people. What is a block? How you can use a blockchain not just for currency-related things. Why you can use a blockchain to do cryptocurrency. By the way, if you hear explosions in the background, unless I check into the police radio and found out something happened, for some reason, ever since this whole thing, like June started, there's just been fireworks going off everywhere, literal fireworks. If you hear giant explosions, don't worry. We're not dead yet, shockingly, despite being in New Jersey. That's just that. So again, we've gone over blockchain, what is in a block, what a block is, how a blockchain is structured, why blockchain has built-in security methods, what those security methods are, and also what mining is and how that works. And I'm going to read Commander's clear. I can work with that. I just need to hard code it then. If you still, we might be able to install the ROM chip without any. To quote you, Commander, you can't do any more damage that I have done to myself. So touche. I'll drink to that. Yep, Namecoin. But we're not going to deal with Namecoin. We're actually going to do that in a future episode where we talk about ZeroNet. So what we're going to do now, and bear with me and bear my computer processes because right now it's just belching out warm air, is we're going to build a blockchain, a very simple one, using code. We're going to actually build it in JavaScript, and then I'm going to show a more complex pre-built program that is in Python, and we're going to dissect that down, and I will show that running, and you're going to see code-wise how this all works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually debating if I should do screen share itself or if I should actually add a screen share in. I wish I thought of this beforehand. Let's actually see if I can add a screen share, so just bear with me for a minute or two. Let's see. I'm also going to explain how I'm going to cheat here. So, remember how I said that I have very limited, I've received 100 messages today on Restream, yay. Remember how I said that, I have really terrible, memory? And I get really nervous trying to do the coding? Well, yep, that's that whole thing, so I'm going to hide that. Okay. So just bear with me here. I didn't just get warped into the Twilight Zone. I'm just setting this thing up so that way we can have the whole picture-in-picture thing. Let's see, down a bit. Let me just go into settings. But yeah, so I get really nervous during that whole thing. Okay, so it's just going to have to be like this then. Let's hide this for now. And so the way I've done this is I'm going to really show how skid I am, and I'm going to be doing a lot of copy pasting. So I basically had a bunch of notes where I was originally going to code live, like type everything in, and then look over for the notes, but one, I didn't have enough time to print this stuff out, and two is that I don't know, even though I think this is a Windows feature, of how to put something side by side, and regardless, because I'm in OBS, because it's OBS, I can't for some reason show you the coding platform while I code. It just shows up as a blank screen. I can't just simply type in reference. So instead what I'm going to do, because it's going to be hard to jumble around while I type, is I'm actually going to be putting blocks of stuff in and also changing stuff bit by bit. You're going to see them, so you're going to see kind of the stuff in advance, and then we're going to run the stuff, and again, we're going to pray that my machine doesn't crash. So let's go to the display capture here, and if everything showed up correctly, and I'm going to give it a moment just so I can see it on the stream. Right now you should see VS Codium open, and that we have, I have a pre-saved main.js open, just so I have to remember about saving stuff. One, can everybody hear me? And two, I currently don't have the chat open. I will see it on a delay on the side, so if anyone has any questions while I do this, please bear with me. You can't really see much, and you can kind of see a bit of a dolphin bit of my head above. Again, I'm going to try to do this here. Yeah, tile windows. I don't know how to do that, and Commander, do not bother walking me through this. I'm just going to do the bootleg method. It also just makes me less nervous. So here we are. I've opened up VS Codium. I've already prenamed it main.js, and we're right here without a block. So I'm going to go into my notes, and I'm going to scroll all the way up. So the first thing, and don't worry because we're going to have to go back and put things on, is we're going to actually have to define what a block is. So I'm going to put this in here and kind of break it down. So we have to make a class called block here, and within that block we're going to use a constructor which sort of binds everything to the class, and Commander's probably going to jump off the roof when he sees this. And in that constructor we are going to have 4 current parameters. We're going to have index, which allows us to basically look through and basically divide each section into a piece of data that then we can look at. We're going to timestamp each block in the data so that we actually have a record of when the block was uploaded and how it was changed. We have the data, which is the actual piece of information that is currently in that block. And again, remember, because a block is a piece of data, you can put anything in here. You can put a number, you can make ASCII of a middle finger, you can put images, videos, computations, goatsy, whatever you want. And then we're going to add another parameter in here called previous hash. And that is basically going to, again, we're making a chain. So like as I showed with the physical chain, this needs to string together. So in order to make a chain, basically each block has to know what previous block that came before, what's kind of going on there. So that's the 4 parameters we're going to have. And essentially, since each block, and I'm going to detail this in a bit, knows what the previous block's hash is, it's able to basically, that will index that, and that hash will in data will probably include the timestamp as well as your unique code signature. It's going to be a string of numbers. And that way, each block has to come, like if there's a block, the next block has to reference that block, and then the one, and that's the way we literally have a string of blocks, hence a chain of blocks, block chain. So for the index, we've equaled that to index. For this, we've equaled it to the previous hash. The timestamp is the timestamp parameter, so we'll stamp that. The data is the data, and the hash is this calculate hash. Now, it kind of auto-added here, but to calculate the hash, we're going to use, and I just blanked out, and this is why I have notes here. We are going to use the SHA 256 or SHA-256 cryptological method. SHA is basically a different type to need to step AFK. I honestly don't know what that means by Commander, but whatever. But basically, it's a type of cryptographic method. You've probably seen SHA if you've had to do like secure like SSL, SSL, SSH stuff with IRC. Because, for example, there's a way where you have to use SHA 256 or any of the others, 5112, and the more complicated the numbers you get. You could also do a different type besides SHA, but we're just going to use this just because it's a baseline simple thing. Again, we're not aiming for super high security here or high complication. We just want to show how the chain works. But here's the caveat about JavaScript. It actually does not have SHA 256 or any cryptological stuff built into the language. So we're going to have to import that. So I'm going to open up a new terminal here at the bottom. And once that's going, and you can see because I'm on the Windows, I've already implemented, where's my other notes? I've already implemented, here we go. I've already implemented NPM, so hopefully this should work. And we're going to put in NPM, we're going to use NPM to install and save crypto.js, and if I hit enter, that should work, even if there's a couple of errors. Oh boy, this is one of these things. This is what I mean about the demo gods. Normally it should pop up and there should just be a bunch of normal errors here. So let's see what happened here. Well, this has put a kink in my plans. Alright, did I type this wrong? Let's try an alternative one. Install. This is what I mean about the demo gods. If you give us a moment, I'm going to just go away from keyboard for a moment, and I'm going to figure out this problem. I will be right back. So sorry about that. Stay tuned. Again, this is what happens with the demo gods. So be right back.
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle. Sound waves reaching the microphone are changed into impulses of electric current. It's the most tremendous new musical experience you can have.
Hit him with the rhythm in the face, push him way back. Work. Swish it. Yeah.
Stop hitting me.
Make the building collapse, drop the bomb, bomb, bomb. Bring it like that.
Okay, so we're back on the mainstream here. Sorry about that at the mainstream. Essentially what happened here was very simple. I didn't configure the terminal to basically, I pre-installed NPM, but I didn't configure that in here. So basically I had to do it through the actual command prompt, and this is actually what's supposed to show off where, you know, we have a bunch of warrants, but it added the one package in there. There's no vulnerabilities. So as far as I know, everything actually should be set in here. So again, cross your fingers for the demo gods. Again, I apologize for the delay here. If you all can hear me, let me know in chat. And also, I just want to remind again, we are raising money for the Trevor Project, which is an awesome organization that provides mental health and suicide awareness and resources for at-risk LGBTQ youth, especially LGBTQ youth that are people of color. So if you have a dollar or $5 to donate, if you're on Twitch, you can scroll below and we have a widget to donate to that. If you are if you're on something else like DLive, send us lemons, DLive, Mixer, or YouTube, or you're watching YouTube through the Tor browser. I'm going to put in chat in a moment the actual link again. So actually, let me go to OBS again. You'll see it all crazy, and I will put in the link to that. So yeah, we're going to go back to Codium here. Again, I apologize. I was not actually expecting that to happen. This is what happens when you tempt the demo guide. So now that we have that here, we actually have to amend the above class block here. So, and again, I'm just going to be doing a ton of cheating, which is going to make and Commander Nash's teeth constantly. So we're going to, so I'm going to open that. Let's go in, return. We're going to put this in. So what we've done here is we've added a new, remember this hash, and it says this calculate hash. Well, that's what this section is now. Now that we have SHA 256 in here, we are going to do this hash, which is this index plus the previous hash. So we're going to add these two together and add the timestamp, and then we're going to string this data and stringify it through JSON, and that is going to create that string, and that's going to create that hash. So once that hash calculates, once this equation is solved here, that will then become the hash parameter that we've done in the block. And also to make sure that this is implemented, we added a constant SH256 and required and pointed it towards the library. And again, if the demo gods work, everything should be running here. So we're going to continue on with the program here. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to add in, I'm just going to this section here. I'm actually going to leave a section out on purpose. Is now we're going to define, now that we know what a block is, we need to now create the chain. So now we're going to add a blockchain. So as we did with the class creating block, we're going to now add a class called blockchain, and we're going to do another type of constructor. Basically, what this is we need to start our chain. And so to start our chain, we're going to have to create something called a genesis block. Every blockchain worth their salt, and joke there because of salting hashes, has a first block. It is known as a genesis block. You can probably infer by the name Genesis why it's called that, and that's your first block. You have to actually create your first block because you don't know, and I'm actually going to make one modification here with the number so everything's consistent. Because you don't know, basically you can't just start a chain with an empty chain. So the first block is always something that is made by the actual people creating the blockchain or the cryptocurrency, I guess in this case. And so we're going to create that Genesis block by creating a create Genesis block, and we're going to return. We put in, again, these values. We have the index value 0, which lets it know that that's the first part, that's the first block in the blockchain. The timestamp date, the data, which will just read Genesis block, and our hash is 0 because there's nothing to calculate, because there is no block that comes before the Genesis block, so this will be our starting block. Included in this blockchain, we also need to put in a parameter for get the latest block. This command is, once we see this chain, it's going to calculate the length and then -1. Once it has the chain length, the -1 to the chain length, we'll put it at the end of the blockchain, which will be any block, or the last block after the Genesis block, and any previous blocks between that Genesis block and the last chain. The last thing we're going to add is the ability to add new blocks. So we put the add block in our kind of constructor here, and this will do the new block previous hash, which is created by getting the latest block hash. So it will check the last block, it'll get that hash and put that in the previous hash parameter here, and then the new block hash, we're going to do the calculate hash, which is up here, the SHA-256. And once that number is created, when we do that calculation, that will put in that. So this block will have both the previous hash value of the previous block. In that case, it'll probably render the Genesis block unless we start a new block, which we're going to do in a moment. And then it's going to also calculate a hash and put that as a new hash. This also means when the next block is created, this new block's hash will be the previous hash for that new block, and then it will generate a new hash, and this will keep going ad nauseum as it's going to keep adding. And we're going to put a push into the chain, so that way it creates basically a new space and adds the new block, and that completes our add block command. So now that we have we now classified what a block is with these 4 data parameters. We now know how to calculate a hash, so we can do an actual hash stamp on there, including which will be in the data parameter as well as the timestamp for it and how it's indexed. We then have created a chain which has a new block, that's the Genesis block, or the first block in the chain. We've also created a method to figure out what the latest block is on that chain, so it's all the blocks that are after the Genesis block, even if the Genesis block is the first one. And now we've also added a rule here to add new blocks, which it will check the hash of the previous block when a block is generated. So find the latest block in the chain, figure out that hash, we'll put it in the previous hash parameter, and then it will use the calculate hash to create a new hash for that block. That data will sit in there along with the timestamp and its index function, and will be put on that chain, and you can see how so on and so on it builds up. I'm going to pause for a moment, not only for a water break, and I know I'm on a delay because I can't quite see chat. If there are any questions of anything that I've done so far, let me know. Please keep praying to the demo gods that this is going to work. And finally, if I am going too fast, if I'm going too slow, if I sound weird, and if you have any questions before I continue, and I'm going to allow a minute, please do so now as I take my water break and also quickly check my notes again. And again, I'm sorry to skid out on this, but I originally was going to have these notes, and then BS happened. So let's see here. So it's closed out. That should. Okay, so I just have to add that, which should end it. Yes. Mortal Kombat character just came out of a room. Yep. Blockchainality. There's a new one. Okay, so if we have done everything correctly here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually view our blockchain. Now I know I'm going to actually bring up the command prompt function because unfortunately I can't do this here, which means I also have to see where it is saved and go through a bunch of different things first. But we're going to add this stuff at the bottom. So what this is it's going to add 2 coins through the program itself. So in addition to the Genesis block, which is 0, we're going to add 2 new blocks. We're going to create a block number 1, which we put this made up timestamp here, so it was made last year. So this is a long period between the stamps, but whatever. And we put the amount, we're putting a 4-space amount between the 2, and it blocks, so that way it knows how to index it. And then we're adding a block after that block, block 2. And note we're using 1 and 2 for these new blocks on the blockchain. We don't start at 0, because there's programmers that was like, you should start at 0, not 1. We're not going to start at 0, not because we're noobs, but because the Genesis block is already valued at 0 in its numerical order in the chain. So that's why we are start doing 1 and 2 when we do these new blocks. And for the second block, we're going to add 8 spaces after that just to do a new index. Now, if we've done everything correctly here, and we're going to hope so, otherwise I'm going to take a short break, we are going to save this. And now I'm going to go in, I'm going to futz around with the terrible Windows command line. So we're going to CD, you're going to get a peek of my computer here. We're going to go in Documents. Actually, I'm going to, you know what, I'm just going to do these individually. Because I didn't think of it nesting in this far, because I had to do some setup here. So now if you ever somehow ever get into my system, you will now know how to at least search for the small program that I made. What did I do? DC201 bid. There we go. I'm actually going to clear this now. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. This while I'm in this, it doesn't know what the heck clear is. And then we're going to go into the blockchain. Okay, and now that we're here, if we've saved this program, everything works. And again, I'm only copying and pasting so I don't screw up here. We're going to run the file, which is main.js. So we're going to go to the command prompt, and we're going to do node space main.js, and cross your fingers. Let's see. What just happened? Did I miss a step? Let's try that terminal window again, just to make sure. See, this is why I didn't sacrifice enough to the demo gods. So that's why this thing is happening. There we go. Okay. Apologize again. Remember, this is live coding, even though I'm just copy pasting. Give me a moment here, and we're going to see what's up. So just chill out with the music, and we'll figure out what's going on. And we don't really have much to go with the JavaScript one. We're actually like halfway there, so just hang on tight. Once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I guess this is my night to be G.I. Jack, but let me quickly solve this problem, and stay tuned.
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle. Sound waves reaching the microphone are changed into impulses of electric current. It's the most tremendous new musical experience you can have.
Hit him with the rhythm in the face, push him way back.
Work. Swish it. Yeah.
Stop hitting me.
Inventions and innovations. And now it's available for everyone.
Everybody from the front to the back now.
Bring it back to the
Swish it. Yeah.
Make the building collapse, drop the bomb.
Okay, so we are back. So let me explain basically what happened here. It's really simple, and again, this is why I get nervous when I do any sort of coding live, even when I'm copy pasting. So remember how, if I can find it in here, basically it's like we have the class blockchain, and it's supposed to like create an output. Well, basically I forgot to create that output, so I had to add in one line. It's always one. It's either a semicolon or one line. I'm just happy it wasn't a semicolon. I also just changed some values here, so now it's just DC coin instead of DC201 coin. Although I can actually just change it back for now. Let's change it back. Because we're not DEFCON. We're just a DEFCON group here. But again, if anyone has any questions or wants to donate to the Trevor Project, which if you're on Twitch, you can scroll below and hit the link for to donate directly, or if you are on a different platform, such as, and I'm going to do this real quick, if you're on a different platform, such as DLive, which again, send us lemons because we need that, lemons on episode 3 to cover DLive on this show, or there we go, or you're on Mixer or YouTube, I just posted in the chat the link to donate. And if anyone has any questions so far, if I'm going too fast or too slow, let me know. So just a quick recap, because now this basically works. Again, I apologize. In Java, we're using JavaScript and VS Codium to create a small basic blockchain. So we first had to explain what a block is, which we use this constructor to make 4 different parameters and index, so it knows how to basically look through the chain and ledger itself. The timestamp, which will give a date and time to that piece of data. The actual data itself, which really could be anything. It could be cryptographic hashes. It could be pictures, videos, goatsy, whatever you would want to put in data, that's what data is. And we also have the previous hash parameter so that it can do the calculating hashes, which that way we make endless amounts of chains. We had to make a calculating hash parameter nested within the block, which uses SHA-256. We can use many different types of encryption, but this is just a simple basic one here in order to create a hash, or basically a string of calculatory numbers, in which we calculate it by doing the index plus the previous hash plus the timestamp data. And here we go, the string of 5 from the JSON, which we'll then put into data and add that to the string, and that will make that hash. We then had to tell our blockchain basically that it's a blockchain, so we had to make an entire class called blockchain. We made a constructor that created a genesis block, which is a block you have to manually put into a blockchain. Every single blockchain in cryptocurrency has a Genesis block. It's manually added in at starting at 0, which is the programmer's way to start at 0, and basically it classifies its own self as a Genesis block to tell our blockchain and our program that there are no previous blocks before it, so it cannot use a parameter known as previous hash, previous hash in order to get that data. So that's our Genesis block we had in there. We then had to tell it how in this blockchain to get the latest block, in which we figure out the chain length and then minus it by 1, which this allows us to basically jump ahead and find what that block is. And then we also had to explain to it how to create a new block for this entire blockchain, in which we added in the, basically we have to put 2 hashes within the data, which is the previous block, except for the Genesis block itself. You have to get the last, the block in the data, its hash that was generated, and add that to the current new block. And then the block itself has to use that SHA-256 encryption here, in this equation to create a new hash, and both the last block's hash and the new hash will be put into the new block. Now, if a block is made after it, that new block, the previous new block that we made, its hash will become will become the previous hash, and then it will generate using the SHA-256 a new hash, and this will continue ad nauseum. And because each block knows what the last hash is and also has a new hash, it will create a constant new chain. And thank you, Number Dos, for following us there. Again, if anyone wants to follow, you can click the follow button. And if anyone has wants to donate to the Trevor Project, even if it's just $1 or $3 or $5, they can. Our goal is $400 by 4th of July, and we have a lot of interesting programs, including this, that will hopefully be worth it to you to donate some cash. We want to mention that NeoZeed is the top donator at $20, and then we got an anonymous donation today, which raised up to $30. And even though it doesn't seem like a huge amount raised, those little like death by 100 cuts, or I guess basically death by 100 donations, is what caused us to reach the 200 goal for Fred Hutch COVID-19 research last time. So we have an entire month plus a week. So let's go, baby. So now that we told our JavaScript program what a block is and what a blockchain is, we have all the necessary material, including importing the SHA-256, because cryptography functions such as SHA is not included in base JavaScript, so we had to import that in the command line. So now that we have our blockchain here, we basically had to add manually, because we don't have like a wallet or anything left, a new blocks in the chain. So we let it know that we've made a new blockchain here, and we've manually added 2 coins, or 2 blocks essentially. And note that the blocks are number 1 and number 2, just like the toilet. And why is that? Why didn't we start with 0? Because the Genesis block is already at 0. If we did this, I could test this later, but this would basically kill the program. It would basically put in an Ouroboros loop that I could never get out of. Essentially, the cryptocurrency version of divide by 0. We added, the index number, which is now we have 0 as the Genesis block, 1 and 2 for these 2 new blocks, a date timestamp that we just arbitrarily made up, and also the data amount, in which we put 4 spaces and now 10 spaces. And again, so block number 1 will take the hash that's generated from the Genesis block, put that in itself, and then create, using our SHA-256, a new hash, and that will be that block. And then block 2 will get the hash from block 1 and put it in itself. It's like a Russian nesting doll here. And then calculate a new hash using SH252 in order to create that. And if we kept adding blocks, it would keep going on. The error that we had before is we actually needed the console display something, because the program was running, but it had no display output. So we had to make a console log for it, stringify it, and then have it output the data of what the DC, and actually I have to do this before it makes this error, because I just changed some parameters. The DC201 coin, we're going to also output the null for the actual data, and do 4 spacings in its index. So now we're going to go back to terminal, and we're going to, put the wrong thing in, we are going to do, actually, if I'm just going to take a quick look and type this in, we're going to actually run our node now, which, because we have JavaScript installed, so we're going to do node main.js. Now that we're in the right directory, when we hit enter, this is the correct output. This is what we see. So this right here is our current blockchain. When a wallet references a blockchain or looks at a ledger data, this is actually what it sees here, this type of data. Now, of course, this is very simple data output because we made a simple tiny blockchain. But as you can see here, we have at 0 a Genesis block with its proper timestamp, and it has its own hash. Now we do block 1 here, which is at 1, index 1. This is the new one, one of the new ones we created. Has its own timestamp, and it can see the previous hash. Look at that, 7D0E, 7D0E. It's the same exact hash as the Genesis block. And then it created as the amount, it made 4 spaces, and then did a completely new hash using SHA-256. Then the second new block we made, which is at index spot number 2, note the DCAFF, blah, 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 DCAFF, blah, blah, blah. So it found index 1, its hash, and now that it's its previous hash data, added the timestamp, did 10 spaces, and now has a new stash. If we were actually to go in, and I'll do this right now, and this one I'll type live DC201 coin dot add block new, I just can't see, new block, and we'll put in 3 because this will be the 3rd index here, and of course VS Codium is trying to fight me now. And we'll make up a date, so we'll do 30 on July 7th, because we're in European time scale here, I guess, 2020. And then we'll do a space on that, and if I can see what I'm doing here, we're going to put in this squiggly amount, and we will put in, how about we do 16 spaces for this guy, and then we will end the squiggly and semicolon. So if we did this right, and we're going to save the current chain, the script where we have to make the chain, and if we run that again, sorry, I realized I still have that thing copy pasted, so there we go. Node main.js on, I can't type, no, not note, main, see, I'm such a skid. It's been a while since I've programmed, that's what she said, JS. You'll see here, remember that new block at 3, so it is at number 3, and see this hash ff93d, blah, blah, blah. It took the index 2, remember that was the latest block, so it went in and it did the get latest block, it did the -1, which made it jump ahead to index 3, and it took that hash from our index 2, that block of data, and now that it's its previous hash, it did our new timestamp, did 16 spaces on the chain, and now made a new hash. And again, if we did 4, 5, it would keep taking, it would take, for example, index 3 hashes here, its new hash, and put that as the previous hash for a theoretical block number 4, and go on and on and on. So let's, and by the way, if I'm going too fast, or you need something explained, or if you have any questions, let me know. I can see the chat, although it's on a delay. And again, we are raising money for the Trevor Project, which provides suicide prevention and mental health resources for LGBTQ youth, especially LGBTQ youth of people of color. As I posted in chat, if you're on DLive, Mixer, or YouTube, I put the link there. If you're on Twitch, you just scroll below in our profile, and we have a widget set up there, right there to donate. So let's see. So we have this current chain, but let's try to make it even more of like a real chain that you would actually make. And let's scroll up here, and we're going to add something here for an extra layer of security. Now, currently, while it can just spit out chain functions for a chain, we currently cannot know, besides just looking at the output data, if this is valid. Like, you know, especially if you're doing something like Bitcoin, could you imagine a person sitting here and having to match the timestamps, the previous hashes, and the current hashes from the Genesis all the way to the last block over and over again? Even at like 30 blocks, you would start going insane. So let's automate this process. So we're going to add this chunk of code here. And what we're going to add in, let me just properly, let me respace this. There we go. Is we are going to add in here a validity section to our blockchain. A lot of blockchains have this. So we're going to let our blockchain itself, our program here, to test if a block that's been added is actually currently valid. So what we're going to do here is what it's going to do is it's going to do this process where it's going to go to number 1 the number 1 block, and it's going to check the chain length, and it's going to figure out that calculation of the current block and the previous block. So it's going to basically take the previous hash parameter, and then let's go up here. The latest, the previous hash parameter, and then the current calculated hash for each block, and compare them with the previous block to make sure it actually has that previous hash in there, which means it's valid. If it's currently currently it is if the block hash does not meet the calculated hash of the current hash, then we're going to get a return false, which means the entire blockchain is invalid, and thus everyone doesn't have currency. The blockchain fails, which is it's supposed to do that on purpose. Hence, this is a security function. If we're also going to say if the previous hash does not meet the previous block when it analyzes that block. So if our hash output, if it like checked the previous hash on index 3, but instead of FF93DE, it was like GD4081, well, then it knows that that's actually a manipulated block in the chain that's not real, and that would also void that. That will also void that whole chain there. So now that we have that, and also if it does this previous calculation and current back calculation on each block, and it doesn't come up with an error, we're going to say it's true, and that way it's going to be valid. Now, in order to make all of this, make sure that it works, we are going to make some modifications to this bottom section here. So we're going to keep, I'm actually going to get rid of the third coin in our block just to keep things simple. And let's test this out. So we're going to change that console log output that we did. And now instead of just simply spitting out data, it is now going to run our is this chain valid? And it's going to do what's all listed here in the end of the chain valid. And because I did bad copy pasta, let me put the correct coinage in here. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to let us know. It's going to do that is chain valid calculation. It's going to compare the previous hash and the current hash of each block way faster than a human can. And we're going to save this. And now we're going to run, scroll down here, the node main.js in the correct folder. And, we have an, programming error. Is this chain valid? Let's see. What did I potentially screw up here? Because, screwing up is always a thing on this channel. Let me just compare what I copy pasted because I'm such a skid. I'm actually going to just do this whole section here. Okay. We're going to save that, run it again. I don't know if that will allow it to run, but we're going to try again. Main.js. We still have the same. What the heck is going on here? Let's double check. Okay, so. I think the issue is... Oh! That's what happened. We didn't end this properly. That should do it. I am the dumb. Welcome to coding, everybody. So, third time's the charm. Let's go in and do node main.js. We're going to run our program again. And it just went through and it calculated those 2 blocks, and our value has come back as true. So, we now can do an instant calculation. Most blockchains have this. It did what I said. Remember when we have the ledgers, which we have the blockchain here, and it knows what a block is, and it knows how to do the hash functions. And remember how I said during the poker game, we all check during the game at some point we stop and we all check the ledgers and make sure it's true. Well, that's what this is chain valid here is doing. We made a console log for it that will let us know a true false if any of these 2 hashes in each of the data, the previous hash and the current hash, is wrong or false, and we got a true. Now, let's attempt to break this program on purpose. Let's go in and manipulate the data directly. So, in this whole thing here, I'm going to add in here a, again, terrible copy pasta. I am going to shout out the person because I'm using a framework here. and we're just going to artificially add the data to the mindset that will make the first block number 1 just amount to 100. That will actually override this amount 4. So if I did everything correctly, we're going to save it. Now we're going to run the program again, and before it does any blockchain calculations, it's going to check the current data on that chain. And if we did everything correctly, main.js, see, it picked that up. It picked up that even though we said on the chain the amount is 4, injecting this data to make it 100, when it compared all the blocks, block 10 says that the previous amount is 4 for the new block under the data with its previous hash. But now but it can't be because it says it's 4, but the current one says it's 100. So because of that, it came back as false, which voids this entire chain. So now you see how that security measure works, and now you see how that works. So we're going to get rid of the error here, and we're going to continue on and do another topic here, and then I'm going to show you the Python code. And again, if anyone has any questions right now about what we just did with the blockchain, again, just as a recap, I already explained way early on what a blockchain is, what a block constitutes of, how a block relates to a coin in the term cryptocurrency, how we can use blocks of data, aka coins or tokens, as an actual currency, how the ledger works, and mining and that setup. And so we went in with JavaScript, we created a block, we told it what a block is, including the type of encryption method in order to do the hash data, which makes unique strings, as well as the timestamp, the overall data, and the index number, the location on the chain. We made a class 4 blockchain, and we made a new constructor where we created a genesis block, or an artificial first block that allows us to start the chain, the ability to scan through the entire chain and get to the last block, and then the processes of adding the new block, in which its main data is it will take the generated hash from the previous block, put that in its nesting data, and then make a new hash and combine those two together as two separate data strings, put them in there. This allows us to do a chain validity check where we'll compare the previous hashes in each block to the current hash of the previous block before it, and if any of that data, as well as the timestamp data or the amount data or the data order is off, it will void that entire blockchain, thus adding security. So now that we have that there, remember how I talked about mining before? Well, now we're going to, and pray for the demo gods, or this is going to be the 2 last times we're going to pray for the demo gods, we're now going to add in mining capability programming-wise. So what we mainly need here, it's just a couple of simple modifications. First thing we're going to add in is a nonce value right here. So we're going to go in the program and add this. Now, I might have to modify something here, so if this doesn't run, I will add that value in there, but for now, I'm just not going to do anything. But yeah, this is going to be a major important component of the block itself. And then within the block, we are going to add a parameter here that's similar to calculate hash, where we are going to add in a mine block parameter in the same way we have a calculated hash one. So we're going to add some space here, and we're going to put that guy in there. So as you see, we now have a difficulty section to mine a block when we call for it. So what we'll do is it'll compare the substring to the hash, set up an array, add a new join. It's going to check that nonce. Sometimes I like to call it noise, like the way Australians or bros say it. And so it's going to do a noise value and a hash value, where it's going to use the calculate hash that we did in order to do that. And once we add both the nonce value and the hash data together, making it into an array string, we now have a block mine, which will display on the console log the block mine and display the actual hash for that. The last modification we're going to do is we're going to redo the entire, actually one of the 2 last ones is we're going to redo our hash calculation. So this was pretty fine for when we were just outputting values and checking for validity. But now we are going to completely redo this section. So now it's going to directly ask for the SHA-26 up here, what we imported from the crypto-js library. And what it's going to do is going to do the previous hash plus selected before the time strings. It's going to do the stringify, and it's going to add the nonce parameter that now we've added in the block. So that's going to add now that nonce parameter to every single new block we created. And thus, when we do a mining command, that it's going to use that nonce as well as that in the hash of each block to auto-generate a new block, so we don't have to keep doing this manually. And I believe there's a couple of others. We're going to now add to the Genesis block a new difficulty parameter. So we're going to go to that Genesis block and add another line in which now we're going to add its difficulty as 2. And we're going to now update the adding block to the add block method here. I believe this is now the new line 2. So before the new hash is generated, we now add a mime block with the difficulty parameter. And finally, we are now going to do a completely new output. So instead of just doing the base output of the validity, we're going to do 2 new console logs in which it's going to show the 2 blocks that are mined. So once again, cross your fingers to the demo gods. We are going to go in here. We saved our program. We're going to type in node main.js. Yep, and we have our mined modules here. So as you can see here, it just spat out this data. It mined 2 blocks, and now we have the complete module listing as it's displayed here. So we have the object, module, function, and that is all the data. Oh, it's invalid. Shoot, I made an error. I think I have to add in. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there again. I am so weird at this. I think I actually have to add in this in here, I believe. So let's save that again. I'm going to hate if I have to cut. I have to pee anyhow, so I might have to cut to break. But let's try this. So we just save. I imagine N Commander is like making a noose right now as I fumble my way through this. So we still have an error. Okay here. So here's what I'm going to do, folks. Again, thank you for watching this. We're not done yet here. This is how you know we're doing this live, because I didn't sacrifice enough for the demo gods. I'm going to go on a break. I'm going to figure out the problem with this. I'm pretty sure future episodes will not be like this, despite me doing more live coding. Because, again, I had to rush through a couple of things. That's my fault to you guys. But, again, thank you for guys who are currently watching. If you want to donate to the Trevor Project, you can. If you're on, I almost said Instagram. If you are on Twitch, we have a module below that will donate to the Trevor Project. If not, in chat, I have posted the link directly to our Tiltify that will wire money directly to the Trevor Project. And by July 4th, whatever money's in there, we hope to reach the 400 goal, but whatever in there will be sent over directly to the Trevor Project, which will benefit at-risk and suicidal LGBTQ youths, and especially LGBTQ use of color, such as African American trans people, which their lives matter too. So just give me a moment. We are going to go on a short break with music. This should be our final break because, believe it or not, I've already tested the Python program and I know exactly how this works. This is just an amusement to watch you guys torture. I also hope you're learning from this. So let me go on a pee break, figure out the problem. It's probably going to be a missing semicolon or something. And we will be right back. So final break, and then we will end the stream probably in 20, 30 minutes max. So stay tuned, guys.
What you're going to hear about today.
Let's try some good music here. we are back. So, I figured out the error. You notice as I keep making a program, it doesn't work in doing error. This is how you know it's real coding. And like I say at Master of Unlocking, this shows you that even though I do know my stuff, and I very much admit that I rarely do deal with JavaScript. My main thing with JavaScript was when I was super young making websites, and it was only like the website stuff that used with JavaScript, and also some minor HTTP address bar JavaScript exploits that some of them still work today. But again, I have not coded in general for a while, except for bouts of Ruby. So just like I said with Master of Unlocking, I am also learning with you guys. And so even though I pre-structured this program, sometimes things go wrong. That's how you know I'm doing this live and I'm not faking this despite my copy pasting. And that's what we get here. So before I go on, again, if there's any questions, if I'm going too fast or going too slow about how blockchain works, please let me know. And also, if you have anything you want to shout out, let me know, even though I have it on delay. And if anyone wants to donate to the charity we're going to be running all this month until next month, July 4th, we will be soliciting donations via Tiltify to the Trevor Project, which is an awesome group of people that run suicide prevention resources as well as mental health resources in general to at-risk LGBTQ youth, and also especially LGBTQ youth who are people of color, such as Black trans women whose lives matter and have always mattered. In fact, without them, we wouldn't have a pride or a movement. I'm not kidding. Go look up that bit of history. If you have $1, $3, or $5, if you're loaded, drop a ton of money. But we're going to try to reach $400 by 4th of July, because when we did the Fred Hutch COVID-19 charity run in the very few shows with just tiny donations over time, we hit our goal. Right now, NeoZed is the top donator with $20, and we got an anonymous person today from Ananiland who tipped us $10. Again, we're just starting this stuff out. So if you like what you see here, if you want to actually improve the lives of LGBTQ people and people of color and just people who have mental health problems in general, especially with how crazy things have been this year, the year 2020, the year that we're all going to try to forget. And actually, we shouldn't forget that this year. We should actually learn from this year in the future. You can donate to us if you are on Twitch, and you can scroll down on this on the stream. So you don't have to leave the stream to donate. If you're on Twitch, we have a widget that you can donate directly through any amount. Again, if you have $5, $10, just donate that. And we will thank you for it on air, and we'll have fun stuff on stream to do when we reach different goals. If you are not on there, if you're on DLive, and if you're on DLive, please send us lemons, because on our 3rd episode, which will be in July, we're going to talk about the DLive platform and how its cryptocurrency works and the weird hacks I had to do to get that running. Or if you're on YouTube, watching YouTube through the Tor network, or on our new platform, Mixer, which, hi, Microsoft overlords. I'm actually shocked Microsoft has not been in blockchain yet, and if they haven't been in cryptocurrency yet, believe it or not, that's probably one of the smartest things they probably could ever do. They're definitely smarter than Facebook in that regard, but that will be a future episode about why Libra, aka Facebook's cryptocurrency, is a scam. But once again, I put the link in the live stream below on all platforms, so you can right-click, open a new window, and donate. But let's deep dive in, again, what we do with this program, because it works now, and I'll explain what the errors have been so far and what I made despite doing only copy pasting. So what we're doing is we're creating a very simple blockchain through JavaScript. And I just want to check something real quick. Okay, good. So again, we started off this episode explaining what a blockchain is, what a block is, what's inside of a block on a blockchain, how a blockchain is structured, where it lines up all the blocks in a row, hence the term blockchain, how you can use the data in those nodes, aka the token, to represent a form of currency, how transactions work, how a ledger is structured to quantify those and legitimize those transactions, the crypto part of cryptocurrency, what its security features are that are baked into it, as well as how mining works. And so far we've written a program at the beginning, did a blockchain, then we automated the security functions on it, and then what we're doing now is we're creating it to mine. So to go over the code that we did again here in VS Codium, First, we had to describe to it what a block is, so we made a block class, and in that block class we have an index, which lets it know as a number value where it's placed on the chain, a timestamp, so we have a date when that block was created, a chunk of data, which will become important, as well as the previous hash. And in that data, what it does calculate is it calculates a hash, in which we use the calculate hash function here, which we're using SHA256 hash cryptography function. We could also use SHA5112 or a different type of cryptography hashing system. We're just using SHA256 just because we just want to create a simple chain. And note, because it's not normal, cryptography functions such as SHA256 are not normally in JavaScript, because JavaScript is older than dirt, although thankfully not older than Fortran or C. We had to actually import a Crypto.js library, which includes SHA256, and put that in there. So once we have that in there, it can do this whole calculation here, which will make a string of letters and numbers that will make it a hash identification, which will be in the data parameter. Then we had to create the blockchain itself now that we know what a block is. So we had to make a new constructor, which includes a genesis block, which allows let me just save real quick, and this is not an, this could potentially do an error. We didn't need to do this, but I did put that in there, and I'm actually going to explain what the error was in a moment previously. But basically, we had to set at the value of 0, that's what it was. We had to create a genesis block, which is an artificial first block on the chain, noted by its number at 0. So it knows when it references 0, because all programming counting starts at 0. That is the OG genesis block. The genesis block is important because normally each block has to reference a previous block before it in order to exist on the chain. A genesis block is the first block, so there is no previous information. So we have to create a genesis block or a special block that has only a new hash and no hash before it. It's the OG hash, because if this didn't, it would go into a crazy Ouroboros loop and eat itself. Once we, and that block has, once again, these parameters, so it says where it's placed, which is 0, the artificial date that we made, the fact that it's a genesis block, which is its data, and that its hash value is at basically 0. So we also made a function so that it can hop ahead and get the latest block. It does that by taking the chain length and minusing at 1, which will automatically put it on the first block of that chain, no matter where that block is. And then we had to make a function which adds blocks to this chain. So basically, it has two main pieces of data. It takes the previous hash of the previous block. If this was block number 1, it would take it from the genesis block. If this is block number 2, it would take it from block number 1, etc., and puts that in its data. And then it uses that same SHA256 cryptological, cryptological hash function. Here we go, because it's in a different shape now because we had to reorganize it in here to create a new string of numbers. And then it puts those together in the data set, and then it pushes it into the chain and thus creates a block along with, again, its number position, its timestamp, and the data, which are the two hashes. So that's how you create a blockchain, and because it now knows what a block is and a blockchain is, we were then able to output what the data on that chain, in which we have two artificial blocks placed in here. We have block number 1. Again, we're not starting at 0 because 0 is in the genesis block. If we set that to 0, it would basically divide by 0 and kill itself. And we put 4 spaces to push between the two, as well as the second block, which will now have 10 spaces. Well, we could do this on and on and on, provided we have a new date value, a new number on the blockchain itself that's sequential to the previous numbers, a certain amount of spaces that need to increase afterwards. Remember, this is really basic. There's other forms of blockchain systems. This is the most basic one. And funny enough, this is, in a nutshell, how Bitcoin is structured on its blockchain. It's just now the chain is really super huge and has enmesnums and many splits and foldings and whatever. But it creates these two artificial blocks because we don't have a visual client yet. What does a visual client do and look like? We'll get to that later. And note, you can also follow us by clicking the follow button. We don't have a subscription button yet, but we are working on that because we're mainly just trying to pass boredom and share all of our hobbies and curiosities through the streams. We're not here to be a YouTube streamer. We're not here to be the latest ninja, because otherwise we would have to be incredibly racist and egotistical, which is insane considering if you meet people in InfoSec and Blockchain Bros in Hoboken, how much egomaniacal you have to be to outstrip those two. So we're not doing that. This is just for educational benefit. And again, even though we're on a delay, if anyone has any questions, whether you're on Twitch, DLive, Mixer, YouTube, or YouTube on tour, because we're currently trying to fix our Periscope, please message me on here. I can see it on delay, but I will answer your question in chat. So, again, let's look at this. So we made 2 coins here with the proper data. Then what we added in is a validity check. And Camara says, I come back and Sidepocket is dividing by 0. Yeah, we've had a couple of errors here. I'll explain what that new error is in a moment, but now everything completely works. So we made an inbuilt validity system because without it, we would have to constantly, and this would involve a human or another separate program to have to look at every single piece of data in the string on the block and compare the hashes between the 2 blocks, and it would just go on. And you can already imagine after 30 blocks was really nice. Now imagine Bitcoin, which has blocks going out the wazoo. I think you could probably... I wouldn't be surprised if the chain is longer than the spaces are in the solar system. Don't quote me on that, but it is a pretty freaking big chain even when it folded. So what we did was we built in a validity system. So we made this is chain valid system to which it compares the hashes between the current blocks and the previous blocks. And if there's a difference between the current block hashes, if like one's out of order, it will return false. If the previous hashes are also not matched, it would turn false. And if neither of these things happen, we would return true, and that is our checking system. The new thing that we added in here is the ability to mine, which I mentioned early on, because mining is a topic we're definitely going to cover. In fact, we have an episode where we're going to actually go into BitGreen and live coding like this, but honestly, it's, believe it or not, a lot easier than JavaScript. We're going to create our own master node and mine BitGreen directly, so you know how master noding works and how a proof of stake mine works. What we put here is a proof of work mining. So some of the modifications we had to add is we had to make this nonce or nonce parameter in here. I like to pronounce it nice, like the way Australians and dude bros do. As Neil, you know what sucks? You wrote in Neil deGrasse Tyson, G.I. Jack, and also it was Tyson. And because I'm about to cook meat after this, I'm now really hungry. So thank you, sorry, not sorry, F you for making me hungry. But we put in and he lives next to me. He probably is going to open the door and throw something at me. Do not do that. I'm trying to make it through this episode here. So you can get revenge on me like that when I bomb your shows on our meeting coming up on June 19th, which will also be broadcasted live. It's going to be an amazing meeting. I'll detail that at the end. So we made this nice parameter in here. And then we redid the calculation hash, which stringifies the data and adds the noise parameter in here. We also added a new mining parameter in the class block, which basically does a bunch of calculations and puts them in an array here and adds that nice plus the hash calculates that hash and will let us know that a block has been mined. I want to remember if we did anything to modify the blockchain itself. I do not think so. Oh, what we had to do with the constructor, and here was the error. I was stupid. I thought we had to amend the Genesis block. We actually have to amend the constructor itself. So we kept everything normal in the constructor, but we added a second line in which now we've added the difficulty is 2, which goes back to the whole mine block and nice parameter, which actually has the difficulty in here. See that parameter difficulty. So that will start off as 2 and then proceeds on as now when we create new blocks instead of auto being them put in there, it'll actually mine from our current blockchain. We didn't have to change anything in our validity thing. We also had to, let's see what we changed here. There's no new nice in there. And then we added the new blocks, and now we changed our console log here. So instead of just spitting out data or checking for the validity, it's actually going to mine the block. So now that we have all of that done, see, despite being JavaScript, this is a lot more complicated than we thought, especially for an idiot noob like me. We're going to go back in, and I add all these spaces in here just because I don't know how to do clear function in a command for Windows because I honestly don't care. I wish you could just type clear like it is in Linux, but I understand Linux despite how much it is like wiping your butt with a cheese grater sometimes, especially if you're on Arch, or dealing with snapped for Ubuntu. So let's create everything equal here. And we are going to do our node because we've installed JavaScript and run the main.js, and we should get the correct output, which is this. We see 2 blocks have been mined, so we have mine block 1 and mine block 2, and these are the cryptologic hashes of those 2. Now, we don't know what the previous hashes are. That was already pre-calculated in the validity check, as well as our add new block function. But if we were a crypto wallet and we wanted to do actual mining and we sent a mining command with the noise, it would generate these new blocks, automate basically the add new block functions which already have its hash functions here, and the mine block calculating hash and mine block functions here, and add those new blocks as block 1 and block 2 as seen block 1, block 2, and it would show that hash value, which then it can compare to its ledger, and that's that. So what we've done so far, and we're going to end it here with the JavaScript, thank God, is we've done is we've created a block. We have now chained those blocks together. We have created and imported a cryptographic hash function using SHA-256. Again, if anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know here on Crypto Barons. We then manufactured 2 new blocks here. We put a validity system to make sure that the blockchain is valid, which we'll double check on the ledger. And we added new parameters so that instead of just simply updating the new blocks instantly, it will mine it. Now, to also note about the difficulty here, and this is the last thing we're going to do, 2 mines them really fast. Let's change that parameter. Let's change it to 10, which will use SHA-32. But with the 10, it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. So let's run that again. Node main.js, and let's time compared. Actually, let me do something real quick. Let's go back to 2 again. We're going to do a comparison. So we're going to make the difficulty 2, which will make a more simple, shorter SHA computation string. And let's run that again after we saved it. You see how fast those were mined with those values, right? Now, let's go back and increase the difficulty. Let's add it to 10, which should technically add more security to it as well as more time for transactions. So we save that, and now we are doing node main. I know I could hit up, but I like typing in JS. You notice it's not instant now. Let's wait for this. It's like watching grass grow, basically. So it's mining, it's going through the process, it's basically doing extra math to create a completely new string. And this is going to test our patience. 10 is a decently high security level. A lot of blockchains have their difficulty section at absolutely astronomical numbers. So this is the actual reason, besides the chain length, why when you, for example, do Bitcoin, it's so slow. It's a combination, slowness comes from not only how big the ledger and thus the chain is, with the amount of blocks it has on it, and which can impact it, the data. Well, actually, we'll add 3. So the data is definitely can impact it, but the 2 biggest impacts are how long the chain/ledger is, and how difficult the actual computation hash is. So you notice when we raised it there, this is going to take forever, especially with the computation on this unit. This is literally going to take forever. I probably should have honestly just set it to 4 to show you guys, but I just wanted to show an example of how long this takes. Because if you've ever done, if you've ever gone to a Bitcoin ATM machine, or you've used a central or decentralized exchange, or an exchange system, which we will go into how those work in a future episode, you'll notice that a lot of times when you do Bitcoin, it will take a couple of minutes to God knows how long to process. Part of it is that Bitcoin goes on forever, but even stuff like Litecoin, which actually tries to set its values low and does other processes, hence the term light, to make it go faster. Ethereum, other coins. The reason why they usually take this long is that, particularly if they're worried about being hacked or trying to do a bigger process, it will actually make its difficulty value much larger, and that's why it's taking forever. And Commander just wrote, I have a special coming up where I'm going to be installing an SSL Linux on my ThinkPad plus patching Linux 09.9. I feel a lot better now trying to program JavaScript, and that is going to be a fun torture section. Again, if you want to see Hackall and Commander's show, will be next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we watch him torture himself with stuff. See, Bitcoin however limits transaction size and the amount of data can go to each block when it gets mined every 10 minutes. Yes. So while it does limit its transaction size and the amount of data, and it funnels its data, which is also why it's slow, the difficulty rating on that 10-minute parameter, which increases automatically at a certain thing, is again one of the reasons why it's so slow. It's a combination of its difficulty and how long the chain/ledger is, which makes Bitcoin really slow. And it's not just Bitcoin. You'll notice that larger coins, for example, Gridcoin, because of all its processes are really large, that coin does take forever. On a bad machine, it takes 1 or 2 days. There is a loophole that they do that I will show next episode of how they get around trying to wait that long. But I just want to kind of just show that here. So I'm actually going to hopefully not kill this machine. And even though it's doing this really long, complicated hash here, I'm actually going to, let's see if I can attempt to do this, because I might bring this back up again. I forgot. I have to actually do the keyboard command for it. I think. Okay. We're actually going to close out of this, which will confuse the program. There we go. I'm actually going to open up the command line again. Now I'm going to try this. If this doesn't work, okay, it does. I'm going to do a lower value on that difficulty rating. And so I'm going to actually change it back to 2 again, and then we're going to go on to the Python program, and then we're done with this episode. Wow, it's 10:08 already. I started at 8, 9, 10. We've gone for 3 hours, and I know some of that was errors, but holy crap. Yeah, and NCommander wrote that the transaction data size is like 30 plus floppies per data, so it's crazy. And he says it can decrease. Yeah, it did happen recently, hence the whole folding event, but that's the problem too, is that the blockchain is so huge that how big is blockchain's Wang? No, that even when it folded, that's why it's still worth $9,000 compared to the $6 trillion it was originally worth, because of how big the chain is, and also because of the current value, because of how big the chain is, and everyone invested in it. But we're going to run this again, so node main.js. You saw how fast that went, so I'm just going to increase. Let's try 2 more units instead of the crazy 10 units. And we're going to save it again, and we're going to run our node again. And we'll now time how much it takes, otherwise I'll go to the Python program. Yep, see, you actually saw the individual blocks mined when I did that. So you saw how instead of just being like, block mine, all the blocks instantly mined, it went block mined, and then immediately after, because it has an actual calculatory hash, did the next block. So we have block 1 and block 2. That's the difficulty parameter in that. So that's how that works. So just to remind everyone again, I'm actually going to save this program permanently, because I'm actually pretty proud of myself despite all the stupid errors I did along the way of this program, even though I do have reference ones over here, which I actually didn't use. I actually had to scan through line by line. That's why it took forever. And compared and do my limited knowledge of JavaScript and figured out all the problems, such as the stupid thing where I added the difficulty to the Genesis block instead of the main constructor and stuff like that. So once again, we just made a simple blockchain through JavaScript, and I can put links in there. SSL was, and then NCommander says SLS was 30 floppies. It was limited to 1 megabyte, so it would fit on a single floppy. It's still a lot. That's, again, one of the many reasons why the chain is so slow. So before we go on to the last thing here, the way we create our blockchain in JavaScript is we used our class system to create 2 main classes. We created a block class and a blockchain class, because we like to be classes here, just like the way our politicians are for the police. And in the block class, we made a constructor to make 4 data sets, an index number so we know where it is on the chain for each block, a timestamp, a set data, which includes a previous hash of the previous block, as well as a newly made hash for this block. We told it how to make a hash using this calculate hash function, and then we also made a blockchain where under our constructor we created a Genesis block to start out with all its relevant data, because normally blocks refer to the previous hash in order to create a new block, but because your first block is the first block and thus doesn't have a previous hash, we have to make a special artificially astroturfed Genesis block in order to make that work with its normal values. All blockchains have a Genesis block. That's actually a type of exploit you can use with Genesis blocks, but we'll get to that in a future episode. Then we told it how to get the latest block by taking the chain length and minus it by 1, which made it immediately jump forward to whatever the currently last calculated and processed and or mined block is. And then we explained to it how to create a new block by basically taking the hash from the previous block and then making a completely new hash for the new block being created, and put both of those values as 2 separate values, a previous hash value and a new hash value, into the same block under the data section. Once we did that, we created new 2 blocks and showed the output for that. Then, because on a blockchain, if we would want to validate it, and again, we want it to be decentralized, and it'd be a big pain in the butt for a human to constantly have to load up the blockchain and compare values. The ledger comparison thing that I showed you as an example with the cards would take forever. We made a validity parameter here to do that automatically, in which it compares the previous hash values and the current hash values, just like we explained in the card game. And if any of those were turned out to have bad math, it would return them as false and void the chain. If not, it would return it as true. And then, that joke needed to generate a compiler warning. Instead of trigger warnings, we have compiler warnings. That's new, Commander. So then our last thing is to make it a true chain. We added to be able to mine blocks instead of just auto-adding blocks. So we added the noise parameter in here, which we've set at 0, because now we had to put the noise in the calculated hash, because then we added this new mine block parameter, which has a difficulty rating that we added later, in which we did this hash substring and then did the difficulty and put in an array, do the nosh and the hash together, and then have an output of the block mined and the actual new cryptographic hash for that block. Other modifications is we had to add the difficulty parameter to our blockchain to implement that. And then we had to redo the console log, which instead of listing every single element that's going to output, we just put mining block, and it does the mining block and the new hash. So we don't see the actual previous ones because we already have the validity chain to check that. Instead, we have these two things, and that difficulty, I'm actually going to set it to 6, so it'll become really slow and save it. So once we had that program, we saved it, and we activated our node in JavaScript, which is main.js in the right directory. And in a couple of moments, it actually generates a block 1 and block 2. Probably should have just added a 5 in that, but let's wait for a moment, and a block should come up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look over the actual the Python program, which, believe it or not, should actually be easier than this, because holy heck, JavaScript. And we're going to do all that. So what we're going to do here is I'm impatient because I want to get to the Python. Not that I'm a huge fan of Python. Again, I mainly code in Ruby, but I just wanted to show an example of how the difficulty scaling works. So I'm going to exit out of this, and we're going to go into the Python program. So all the stuff I showed you in the command line there, that is what a wallet sees programming-wise when it does stuff, if it's programmed correctly, to look at the ledger and chain. So let's look at a very complicated blockchain here. So what we have here is a whole node similar to our JavaScript node, but entirely done in Python. So once again, instead of we have classes again, so we had to make a block class and its computational hash, which is all of this stuff using SH256, because again, we're making a basic one. We made a blockchain, because of the way Python's structured, we put the difficulty directly in the blockchain itself up here. We did an init here that adds unconfirmed transaction chain. We created our Genesis block within the blockchain itself. Then we had the property parameter here. Let's see what else has changed. We had a static method in here for the proof of work, which it's this function that try different values to noise to get the hash that satisfies our difficulty criteria. Again, this is a way more complicated program here, as well as a two different class methods. One is a proof, and one is the check validity thing, aka the same thing we did here with JavaScript with it. Is this chain valid? Is over here as a class method as check chain validity. We added a mining implementation here, which adds a very similar, again, the timestamps and previous, as well as the two hashes. Then we have a copy of the blockchain node, and now we're going to do an application process, which is something I'm going to show you here. And this is actually a really cool thing to use command line and PowerShell at the same time, which I never thought I would ever say out loud, but welcome to Crypto Barons. So we have a function here for an endpoint for a new transaction. Again, if I sound like I'm just blurting numbers, if you have any questions about what I'm going over, or you want a shout out, or if you want to get shout out really easy, just donate $1 or $10 to the Trevor Project, which is the charity we're going to be running all the way to July 4th. Trevor Project is really awesome. They provide suicide hotline among mental health facilities and utilities for at-risk LGBTQ youth, especially LGBTQ youth, people of color, such as Black trans women, whose lives matter. They definitely matter because, one, they're human beings. Two, they're also OG biohackers. And if we didn't have them, there would have been no Stonewall riots and no Pride, and everything would suck more than it already is. Because trust me, Trump is really trying with his new police state. Out of all the presidencies, it had to be Trump to do the complete balls to the walls police state, right? But yeah, if you have $1 or $5, you could donate to that. If you're on Twitch, you can scroll below and you can donate directly through a widget. If not, I'm going to quickly go into OBS and chat and share the link to our fundraiser. So if you are on DLive, which don't send some lemons as well, or if you, because we're going to have our third episode, it's going to be about DLive and its whole cryptocurrency system, or if you're on YouTube or watching YouTube through Tor, or on our new program Mixer, which, hi Microsoft overlords, I'm really shocked you haven't done blockchain or cryptocurrency yet, because just don't. Not even because we hate your guts, just don't, because we already seen when Facebook got into blockchain and how terrible that was legally, coding, and ethical-wise. So just don't. Save yourself the trouble. Worry about the Xbox Series X, Series Xbox X of Series X, or whatever you're calling it. But yeah, so if you donate some, we will definitely shout you out. Right now, NeoRez donated $20, and we had Anonymous tip of $10 a day, which is very cool. Again, if you only have $5, just send that in. All the money is going to go directly to Trevor Project. We don't touch the money. It just auto bills in at July 4th. So back to this more complicated program. We've now created an endpoint set up on the node copy of the chain. So the application is going to go to the endpoint to query all the data here. And then this is another query here, which will in a command to mine on the application. When we actually mine is this whole section there, the mine unconfirmed transactions. And now we have endpoint to add new peers to the network when the app connects. That's that whole section, and it just goes on and on. We're going to create chain from the dump. Okay, just say create chain from New Jersey, because it's basically, it's like saying ATM machine, same difference. Again, this is a way more complicated program, because in addition to, it's basically has the same functions as our JavaScript program here, where it knows what a block is, it can create a new block, it can verify a block on the chain, and we can also mine from it. But in addition, what it's doing is it has this whole nested system in Python to have an application function. So instead of doing stuff through the command line, we can actually use a visual interface for this, and this all folds together among some web parameters and stuff that I can show later into our run underscore app Python here. So let's attempt to run this program. So the first thing I'm going to do, and hopefully, actually, let's try to run this through our Opera GX browser. And while that's going to work, I'm actually going to take away the display. And now we're back to my face here, repping the HushCon and the actual blockchain itself that G.I. Jack, our other co-founder, thankfully donated to me. So you might hear a melody as the Opera GX browser loads. I'm using an Opera browser not because they're the best secure browser, but because the GX browser is actually a gamer-made browser that is really useful, because since it was designed for gamers, you actually have the ability to limit the amount of network traffic, CPU, GPU, and RAM that it uses. So basically, I'm going to turn all these limiters on, and that way we can hopefully process stuff without killing the stream. And I have a ton of tabs open, but we're just going to do this base thing here. So now that we have GX running here, let's attempt to run this Python program. So I'm going to turn back the display capture so you can see my screen. As we saw in Codium, we're going to run this whole thing here. So as much as this is going to make NCommander bleed from the ears, yes, Nessus6, the XX box, the sex box with 3 X's, we're going to load in his favorite terminal, PowerShell, in administration mode. If we had NCommander on voice, normally this is where you would hear him screaming and banging his head in and crying and the gnashing of teeth, but we're going to load that up. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the directory where we have our Python program, and the application layer we're going to use to make the GUI interface for this, which is going to be through an actual browser, which is why I had to load up Opera. We are going to use something called Flask, which, if you've ever done web programming, there's a thing called Jekyll that's kind of popular, that's done in Ruby. It has a lot of attack surfaces, it's really slow, but it gets the job done, and we actually use a version of Jekyll to make the website, although it's not exactly default Jekyll on how we did it. Well, I'm not going to say to try to hack our site, but, you know, there's a way we do it that I'm not going to say on air. Thanks to Siricel, by the way. He's a great programmer. Way better than me right now. So now we're in PowerShell as NCommander is crying and slicing his feet off. Maybe this counts as his torture. It doesn't. He likes to think so, but I like to torture him this way. And I'm going to use my notes in order to go through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go where our directory is for this program, and we're going to initiate Flask, which I've already pre-installed on here, so I'm not going to go through the installation on this. By the way, this is the way you do it on Windows. It's way simpler to do it in Linux, and I actually have Cywin on here. I can actually type it. I actually have this program called Cywin 64, which basically allows you to do Linux terminal commands. It interprets them as Windows command line commands and does that whole thing. But I'm not going to do this because, one, it's a little tricky when it comes to a complicated program like this. And two is that I want to actually show you how it's done in Windows, because again, it's much more complicated on Windows, and I can't think of another time where I get to do this sort of thing. So we're in PowerShell right now, and I'm going to look at my notes here. So first of all, we're in System 32. We're going to use the SL squiggly to go to our default, which is my default user here. God, I love doxing myself on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 CDs, and even though I'm going to preview this, we're actually a CD into Documents. And now we're going to CD into where it's located, which is Python blockchain_app. So now that we're there in PowerShell, we're going to, normally, as you can see on here, we would use pip to use the requirements txts on here. So instead of having to install every single requirement, they have already a list of requirements that are that's the basically background programming functions. It's dependent on all in one text file that you have to run. I'm not going to do that here because I already installed it, but I will say this. This was made before Python 2 fell flat on its face. So any of the pip commands you're going to see in here, except I think maybe the last one, I will recommend to use pip3 for Python 3. The program still runs as it is. It's just using normal pip. It's going to try to default to Python 2, which currently basically doesn't exist. So just keep a note of that. But basically what we're going to do now is we're going to activate Flask, which will be our interpreter between the blockchain program that we're going to run in Python in a different terminal, in the normal Windows terminal, and our actual program, which will generate onto, I can actually probably go into the source here really quick to bring this up. Documents. I am so doxing myself right now. It's not in the app folder. It's in, trying to remember where this is. I think it's in here. Nope. Give me one moment and we will run the command. Yeah, I found liberals. Okay. This is why I normally rehearse things. It's app templates. Yeah, you see we already have 2 templates called base and index here, and I should actually be able to... Can I drag and drop this in here? Let's find out. So yeah, we're going there now. This is a base template of what our app looks like, and if we look at the source code for it, we can see we already wrote up in HTML5 these sort of templates. So what it does is right now there's like no data, and you'll notice there's like a lot of like percentage, what the heck is this? These are the variable parameters that our Python program will build into here. So that's our index, and then we also have a base. Oh, come on, work. We also have a base one in here, which does an overall thing, which you're going to see here, because again, we're going to be able to mine and put in data. And this is great because you will see that the data doesn't have to be a cryptological hash. It's data. It can be anything. So now that I've gotten ahead of myself, we're going to go back to Commander's favorite terminal, the PowerShell, and we're going to activate Flask. Nexus, as why is he using Windows? Simple question. Base reason, OBS just runs way better in Windows than it does in Linux. Trust me, we tried to run in Ubuntu and get it stable. It wasn't working. Also, since my version of Linux right now, just due to utility, is Ubuntu with GNOME. GNOME hogs a lot of system resources. In fact, if you want to kill a low-end machine, run Ubuntu, maybe something else, but like Ubuntu through GNOME, and open Chrome with the New York Times, and you'll instantly kill the computer because there'll be no RAM left. The only RAM that you will hear is your fan in your computer ramming against the shell of your laptop in order it wants to burst out like a chest burster from Alien. But yeah, Windows, basically the OBS is more complete. That allows me to do direct browser interfaces, and it runs the audio better and stuff like that. That's why I'm using Windows. And I'm actually fortunate. I will be installing for future things a VM to show certain blockchain stuff, but I actually am very fortunate that, believe it or I can't believe I'm saying this, that I'm on Windows during this demonstration, because again, with Flask, all we would have to do is 3 lines directly in terminal and then open a new terminal to run the other program would work. There's kind of a unique way Flask runs in Windows using PowerShell, so I thought I would show that off. So again, we defaulted to our main directory and we CD'd all our way to where our main app is, and now we're going to run Flask in it. By the way, as a note, remember I said with pip and pip3, not only are we going to use pip3, I think until the last time we have to use pip or the Python file manager, blah, 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 but when you do this, because Flask basically kind of containerizes this whole thing, thus creating the app and the bridge between the Python code and the web interface we're using, you actually want to install and activate Flask before you do the requirement install. So once you activate Flask, then do the install in it, because if you do any requirement installs and then do Flask, Flask is its own separate thing. It doesn't know what you installed in overall on your computer, and you're going to have to do it all over again. So yes, we're going to now run Flask and pray, because we're going to run this once, because normally the fan kicks in really heavy, so if the stream dies, that's exactly why. And cool, we have a clean end commander who's flashed out of the shower. Maybe I'll torture you where you have to take nude pictures. I don't know. Anyhow, that'll be for a future episode, but we're going to run this once now. Pray to the demo gods that this does not crash the stream of the computer. So we're going to run it, and now we're in Flask, because we see that, because that VENV, once it puts that in front of there with the PS, I guess PlayStation, and our command line, that's how now we know Flask is running. So now that Flask is running on here, let me go back to our notes, we're now going to activate Flask for that node server. So this is where the fan kicks in. Remember all this code that we wrote here? We're going to activate that inside Flask, which again will now be able, Flask is going to link that to the visual interface that we made through HTML5. So we're going to go back to here, and we are going to put EVN, which communicates to Flask, the Flask app, which will now containerize Node Server Pi and make the link. So cross your fingers. So it's done that. And now the fan's going to really kick in, because now we're going to run Flask itself, now that it knows what node server it's going to run inside Flask. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have it run, and we're going to have it run through port 8000 just by default on Flask. So, cross your fingers. It's going. It's going. Yep, now it's running. So we have a URL here, and we can press Control-C to quit, which is our default, which is 127.0.0.1, aka there's no place like home. On port 8000, our debug mode is off, but basically our temporary containerized server is running thanks to Flask, and it's running in the node server Python. That's this code that we drafted up here. And now, independently, I'm going to bring back the command line again, and we're going to run one last line of code here, which is the run application Python. So once we run this code, it's going to import from the node server Pi and a bunch of other things, and then run it into the browser parameter that we set up here. So that's PowerShell. Remember, that's it. So on a completely separate thing. And yes, to ask Mark Wins again, he asked if this is crypto trading. We do sometimes talk about trading and the market and the community around it, but what we're actually doing here is we're talking about blockchain, making a blockchain, and how mining works. And Mark, I'm glad that you know that already. A lot of people don't, and the main differentiating here is that we are actually we're actually coding our own blockchain here, and I'm going to break that down. And I broke that down through code, how a blockchain works and how mining works, and doing validity checks and stuff. If you want to see after this live stream is saved and go back, and you don't know the coding around it, you can follow along with me. I'll also post the coding links on our social media and perhaps our news area, including crediting where all these amazing program templates came from. And you can run this code yourself if you've ever wanted to know code-wise how a blockchain actually works and how mining works in code. So once again, we've now linked the Nova CertPi to Flask using Windows PowerShell. We're running that containerized server. and then in command, and now I'll be able to fry an egg because I can literally feel a jet of air that's 5 inches away from my fan on this laptop. In the command line prompt, we are going to run the actual run at Python, and that will take the containerized Flask, and we'll use Flask to link our blockchain node directly to our visual interface. So let's run that now. Oh, before we do that, I was almost about to make a boo-boo. Again, I have to cd into documents and cd into the place where we actually have the chain, otherwise it wouldn't know where the heck we are. So blockchain app. So now that we're in here, we're now going to run the run at Python, which will bridge the two together, and cross your fingers that the stream doesn't die. So to note, we have to do two separate processes here to get this to work with a visual interface. We have to first run the actual node server with the blockchain on it, and we did that using PowerShell. I could also do the same thing in PowerShell with the other program, but I think for visual use and mental insanity, and plus I've never done this before with two different command units. Command line terminal interfaces. I'm doing the actual node server that's coded in Python. That's all this stuff here in PowerShell. And so now that that's running with its generated URL, we are now running the actual application, which will then bridge the Flask node that's running in PowerShell all the way to the visual GUI interface that we have here. So remember that this part here before, which is running on 500. So if I did this correctly, I should be able to copy that. And we're going to go to that URL on port 5000. And here it is. This is our GUI interface. So what you're seeing here is this all this code that we did in VS Codium, and also the application code, which is just 2 measly lines. But all this code here, which has the blockchain, what a block is, the mining, validity checks, etc. And we ran that in PowerShell using Flask in order to run the actual node. And then we ran the actual app, and that linked it to a URL that now we can go to a browser. And now we have a decentralized node here. So the way this was going to work is we have to mine, and then we have to put in data. So we have two options here. We can resync, which just shows nothing because we have no new data. So let's create a block by requesting to mine. So when we click on this, it's going to mine in the background. I'm going to see how fast I can switch here, and you should see the change. Yep, so in Python, that chain HBL got fave icon updated. And you also saw that new line added here. And there is no transaction to mine currently from. So let's see, let's add some data. So let's do hello world, and we are DEFCON 201. And let's try posting to add data. So now that data is in there, that updated on the chain. You see the new transaction in the chain update. We also have a new mget line here for the actual Python client running. So when we do a resync, yeah, nothing shows up because now that we have the data, we have to mine that data in order for it to show up on the app. So now that the data is on the chain, as we see with these updates, now we're going to do the request to mine. And you saw there's a new mine update here, as well as a new mget. And now our block 1 has been mined. So now that it's been mined, we can display the mine data that we entered in using the resync, which will recheck our blockchain. And you can see we just added a new chain request. There's no new line here because we're updating the actual server. And there's our data that we just mined, the hello world. So show again, we're going to do dirty Jersey represent as our data. And this shows you how that's the data that's input in. If we actually looked at the chain data, which we can't do right now, you would see a hello world at parameter DEFCON at this timestamp, as well as the 2 cryptological hashes that generated with this data, which is hello world, just like we did with the this JavaScript code, except we're using text data and a registered username through this GUI interface rather than just a random generated number. So we're going to call this, I'm going to post this myself as Sidepocket, and that will add data to the chain, which you will see that mget chain update here, the new transaction. And now, in order to get that data, we're going to mine that data, and mining it will bring it over and be displayed on our GUI interface. So we're going to request to mine, and you can see that mine update as well as our new mget here. And we mined now block 2, and you notice it said block 1 before. Now we have 2 blocks. So if we resync again, see, we just updated the chain on that and got a new mget. And now we have both DEFCON block 1 with the hello world data with this timestamp and 2 cryptographic functions we can't see, as well as a data now with Sidepocket at a later time with Dirty Jersey represent as its data and 2 hashes we can't see. And if we saw those hashes, if we saw this, what I posted at Sidepocket with Dirty Jersey represent, that the previous data, that hash that we can't see, would also be as the new hash in DEFCON 201, and then its previous hash data will point to a Genesis block that is in here that has no previous data and has been sent to 0. So, as a summary again, and let's go back to seeing my not so beautiful face. There we go. So, as you just saw on Crypto Barons, we explained what a blockchain is, what a block consists of, how you can use a block as a token system to represent data on a blockchain. We talked about and showed an example of how a blockchain is structured, where it strings those blocks together, the inbuilt security features that most blockchains have, inherited, which includes the crypto part, hence the term cryptocurrency, in order to validate the blockchain and how it checks to make sure there's no errors or tampering, and how mining works. And we proved how mining works by making, even though we had a couple of errors along the way, because again, just like with you guys, I'm also learning too, we use JavaScript to make a simple blockchain that had all those functions in it, data, blocks, automatic verification check, the ability to mine data automatically and to build those blocks by itself. And then we saw that through the command line, and then we opened up a way more complicated program that uses Python and a GUI visual interface, which works directly through Flask, which is basically, it works if you've done web development. It's a middleman like Jekyll, where it bridges a piece of coding you make with a web template, so that way instead of having to go through the command line all the time, you now have a visual interface. And again, with Electrum, a lot of these wallets are literally websites essentially, and I'm actually going to cancel out of these programs so that I do not cause too much more terrible harm for our computer. So now our blockchain doesn't run anymore, and I will exit out of these. And we showed that through Windows using both PowerShell and command line separately, running the 2 Python programs and showing how a GUI interface works, which is basically what most GUI interfaces with wallets or even online transactions such as exchanges work. Pretty eventful episode, I would say. Again, if you enjoyed that content, if you enjoyed what you see on Crypto Barons, please follow us on here. We always love to shout out followers, working on a subscribe system soon. If you want to make a big impact and you have $1 or $5 to spare, heck, if you want to go crazy and spend $200 or, sorry, not $200, well, that would be amazing. That would be halfway through our goal. But $20 or $50, you can donate any amount of money to the Trevor Project, which is what we are doing our charity all the way to July 4th. So all the way up from now to America's birthday, we will be raising funds for the Trevor Project through Tiltify. We don't handle the money ourselves. We have Tiltify, which is a professional nonprofit organization, handle that for us. Any amount of money, even if we don't meet our goal, let's say we make it shy and it's only $350, that $350 will still directly go through Trevor Project. And the Trevor Project is really awesome and very timely now. It is a great organization that provides suicide prevention as well as just general mental health resources, mainly targeting LGBTQ, that is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other folks who are, whether they're asexual, intersex, just all over the self-sex identifying as well as sex preference spectrum out there, because they are constantly being bullied, as you saw today. our president just made an executive order that stripped all of their medical rights away. That especially affects trans women. And there's a lot of people of color who are in the African American diaspora, as well as racial minority communities. So if you have both a racial minority and sexual minority, ooh boy, are they at risk in this society, despite us supposedly being a first world nation. So you donate to that, you'll be helping out people with mental issues, especially LGBTQ youth and people of color who are at risk. So again, if you like what you see, whether it's on my stream now, whether it's on N Commander's show next week on Wednesday at 8 p.m., or and thank you, Nessa6, for posting the Trevor Project website. You can, if you please donate. You can also donate when we're not currently streaming. If you want to be nice, and we'll read all the donations later. Right now, we got anonymous donation at $10 today, which bumped it up to $30 on top of Neozed's $20, who is currently the highest person on there, probably both in weed as well as donations. So thank you very much for both for the anonymous person as well as Neozed for donating. If you are on Twitch, as I posted in here, we do have a widget right below our profile that shows you where you can donate directly without having to go off the live stream. That makes everything less complicated. If you are on another platform like DTube, don't worry, on the 3rd episode, so next month, we are going to cover you and your cryptocurrency system, so definitely also send those lemons if you have no actual money to donate to the Trevor Project. But if you do have money to donate to the Trevor Project, please donate to that. Or if you're on YouTube or watching YouTube through Tor, through Nvidius, or on our newest stream, Mixer, hi Microsoft overlords, please don't get into cryptocurrency so I don't have to bash you on air. I just posted the link directly to our Tiltified chat below. So, before we end the stream and I can actually eat food, I can't believe we streamed for basically 4 hours. I thought this episode would barely make 2 hours. I thought we'd be done in an hour. So I'm shocked how long this lasts. Now, every episode's not going to last this long. I can tell you right now, what I know off the top of my head is that the next episode of Crypto Barons, which we do this every Saturday, every second and fourth Saturday, so the next one will be on June 27th at 8 p.m. We are going to show 2 crypto coins. One's called Pinkcoin, cryptocurrencies. One's called Pinkcoin. The other is called Gridcoin, and we're going to show how they use their unique proof of stake and proof of work methods to actually benefit human society. So basically, you get to do what was originally seen as impossible under capitalism, which is make all that moolah money and actually benefit humanity in a weird, selfish way. It's basically the most selfish way to do it. And then I guarantee that on our 3rd episode, which if I look at the calendar for Crypto Barons, will be July 11th. We're going to cover the DLive platform that we are also currently streaming on, and I'm going to show how their whole Lemon and BM system works, including the weird hacks that I had to do, believe it or not, to get it to actually work on air. We're also in the future going to be covering master nodes with BitGreen. I'm going to show you, probably through pre-recorded video or possibly VMs, on how to make your own, cold storage wallets, and also how to convert a USB stick into your own cold storage wallet. We're going to hopefully go on site to look at some Bitcoin ATM machines and explain how those work, because we have a bunch of them locally here in Jersey City. We have, what's other topics? We're going to be covering a lot of different stuff, a lot of insane stuff. We're going to be covering cryptography on the dark web, security features, hacks, ways that cryptocurrencies now, current, and in the future have been hacked with things, for example, like the 51% exploit and stuff like that. We're going to be covering, I have literally a year's worth of content for Crypto Barons, and this, honestly, was probably the hardest episode. The first step is always the hardest. This one, because of coding, as you can see, with all the errors, despite me pre-typing all of this, except for the Python program, which I was pretty confident in. I learn along with you guys, even though I've been in cryptography for a couple of years now. Thank you for tuning into Crypto Barons. If anyone has any questions or any shout-outs, or if anyone wants to do any last-minute donations so we can shout you out on air and praise you, please, you're more than welcome to do so, because I'm going to leave this running for a couple of minutes. Anyone out there? Any questions or comments or anything? Did I scare all of you guys? Did you all understand the programming? I'm assuming everyone's a way better programmer than I am, so I hope you understood, even if you don't know about JavaScript or Python, how everything works. I hope I broke it down really well. I hope you really enjoyed the actual blockchain that I have here. I will say that if you're currently on the stream, we are going to raid. Actually, let me see what's currently who's streaming right now. Because normally we raid the Woke channel, which covers a lot of protest stuff, but I'm actually going to see who is streaming right now and see if maybe we can go to potentially a different channel. We're going to find that. Twitch streaming right now. I mean, I try to be topical here, and I try to go to Crypto Barons, but we will see here. Ooh, someone's doing, someone's apparently printing, oh, it's a 3D printing channel. They're making mask first responders. We might read that. I think I still might do Woke. Let's see who else is on here. Again, if anyone has any questions for chat. Thank you, Nexus 6, for tuning in on us. I don't know what you learned about cryptocurrency or blockchain before, but I hope this episode, especially if you're watching this as like after I broadcast and it's pre-recorded, I hope if you are looking out there that you learned more about blockchain and cryptocurrency than you have before. That's kind of my goal with this show, is just show you that it's not all just finance numbers and hedge funds and stuffing your mattress with money. There's so much stuff to do with blockchain and cryptocurrency out there. It's absolutely amazing, and it's going to be really fun showing you. It's going to be a surprise. We're going to announce the episodes in advance in the future, like more advanced than this. We just basically had a delay because we had to do a last-minute live stream. But we will talk about the, like a couple of days before we air the Crypto Barons episode, we will have the new one. Again, our upcoming shows, and if you have any last-minute shout-outs before I end the stream directly at 11:50, and there goes another firework, and another firework that just went off because welcome to Jersey City, Joyzy City. I literally have a year's worth of content for Crypto Barons, and if you're interested in some of the other shows and content we do, you can go to our website, which is www.defcon.org. You can also see on the stream we have our own Onion landing page that is currently up, as well as you can follow us on Twitter at DEFCON201NJ. Follow us on Instagram, GitHub, or TikTok, which we're going to go back to at DEFCON201. We have our own Mastodon account at hoststux.social. You can see all that if you go to the website www.defcon201. If you want to contact me when I'm not streaming, you can email us at info@defcon201.org. That's info@defcon201.org. And now that I'm thinking about it, so like I said, the next show that's going to air is N Commander's Hack Alt N Commander, which he does at Wednesdays at 8 p.m. So it'll be next Wednesday at 8 p.m. all the times of Eastern Standard, so 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm actually going to attempt to bring up, if I can, our news page, because we have an important announcement that's going to go up right at midnight, basically. Let's see, we're getting there. It's chugging, but we're getting there. And then, you know, of course, Jack's going to have his upcoming Archvile show, his third episode, and I'm going to have my third episode, Master of Unlocking, 2 Sundays from now. That will be on the 21st on Sunday. But a big date that's going to happen is June 19th, known in the African American community as Juneteenth, because ironically our meeting's the same day that they've ended slavery in the United States. Who knew? We honestly didn't plan that on purpose. We literally meet up or live stream our meetups every third Friday of the month, but it just happened to be Juneteenth. And even though, because we pre-planned this, we are going to be dealing with a lot of African American and Black Lives Matter issues. Again, we're getting funds for the Trevor Project. If I can turn on the display camera back on, I will show you guys our announcement here. We have all the information for our June meeting, which again will happen on June 19th. The pre-show should start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to do we're going to start the actual content at 7 p.m. like we normally do Eastern Standard Time. Whether we're not going to do a piece where we meet in person, I don't know. I'm going to have to make a phone call for that tomorrow to find out. But we will, whether we have a small group in person or we can't have a group, we are definitely going to live stream this like the way we're streaming Crypto Barons right now. And I'm going to put this up here. And so here's all of our meeting info. Our meeting's going to be called Rainbow Tables because in addition to adding Black Lives Matter stuff, we're going to be celebrating Pride all month. We're going to be focusing June 19th, that's a Friday, that's this Friday, June 19th, known as Juneteenth. Show starts at 6, the stream starts at 6 p.m., the content starts at 7 p.m. and goes on to question marks. We don't know if we're going to end at 10, 11, midnight, past midnight, whatever. If you email us at info@defcon201 on the Thursday, the day before the meeting, we will send out details on how you're going to attend the meeting. I can only tell you we are not going to be using Zoom for the meeting because F them with their BS on doing a price class listing on cryptography, as well as recently shutting down activist groups, mainly Hong Kong activist groups, with Zoom. So screw them. We're going to be using a different platform. We can't announce what platform that is yet because we're doing some testing, but we can promise if you email us, info@defcon201.org, by Thursday, if you do a request, we will send you the link to that. You should be able to do it for a web browser, and that will be there. We also have a code of conduct online, and we're going to be donating to the Trevor Project for LGBTQ plus people and Black Lives Matter, for LGBTQ, especially LGBTQ people of color who are at the most risk for suicide. We're going to be on all these current live streams. We're going to try to get Periscope back. And let's look at the show. So we plan on having, and I love this graphic here, a pre-show DJ entertainment by an amazing woman who happens to be transgender, who's a DJ. She needs to get back to us in a bit because she's been really busy, so we will post that information soon. We always start our meetings with an announcement of the code of conduct here. This might be risking it, but we're going to have numerous special guests on that will take up like 3 to 5 minutes at the time, and we're going to start things off by inviting on the Tech Learning Collective. They're an amazing group, as it says here. They're an apprenticeship-based technology school for radical organizers in New York City. They provide learning for hacking and IT infrastructure as like InfoSec and hacking to underserved communities and organizations, especially ones that are advancing social justice. So they're literally the social justice warriors. They're an awesome group. They're super elite hackers, in my opinion. It's going to be really fun to bring our fellow Electronic Frontier Alliance group members on here to talk a bit about ourselves. And then we have 3 amazing talks. We're going to have the basics of live sound by one of my awesome friends whose stage name is Queen Sierras, who is a audio engineer by day and a sexy burlesque performer at night. Also, a thing we didn't list here, she can also sing opera, but she's going to cover the basic of live sound setup and dive into specifics involving EQ and feedback prevention and other things. Basically, the whole kit and caboodle about acoustical audio engineering live for a live stage show. So for all of you audio heads and music hackers out there, that's going to be a fun topic. Our second speaker is an amazing woman who happens to be trans, known as Cho System Name, who's she has done awesome stuff. She actually runs her own CTF crew online and runs the Gender Hacking Village at conventions like DEFCON. And instead of doing a code thing, she's going to look at the techniques that transgender people use for transitioning. She's going to explain what transitioning is and what the different chemicals and other surgeries and chemicals do chemically and psychologically to influence a person who's transitioning, and is going to explain to it as, which is true, that transitioning is some of the most OG biohacking out there. And then our last talk is going to involve furries, because it's the internet. So we have furries, the amazing people at DC Furs or DEFCON Furs, who normally would have their own tiny section section at QueerCon every year, but because DEFCON is canceled and is in safe mode and live streaming, they're not going to have a physical booth this year, obviously. But M-Blade, who is a notorious furry and at many furry conventions as well as hackers at DEFCON, is going to be talking about the tech they use to make the fursuits. So now he's going to explain how a fursuit is constructed, but he's also going to explain how fursuiters add LEDs and various electronics such as voice communications. And my favorite is, I believe he actually has rigged one of his fursuits to be a advanced walking pineapple, so it actually cracks network routers and pwn shells as he's walking around doing stupid stuff in his fursuit. That's a talk not to miss, literally between audio engineering, transitioning involving biohacking, and fursuit technology. I can't think of, honestly, a better lineup than this. And again, we're going to have also multiple special guests. different hackers from the LGBTQ community come on our stream. If you are an LGBTQ person, especially an LGBTQ person of color, and you want to share your experiences on our stream, or you have a cool project coding or hardware or chemical or otherwise to show off, please come on to our stream. Email us at info@defcon201. And that's going to be involving in our show and tell that will air after all these talks happen that we always do. We still have our folding at home thing going on that we'll be doing, which is, again, our team is 241960. So you type in folding at home 241960 when you sign up for folding at home, and you can help us beat COVID. And probably at some point we're going to be playing Jack Party Pack online games using my Nintendo Switch, where if you have a cell phone or a browser on your desktop, you'll be able to play games with us. So that will be our meeting on the 19th, basically. Again, join us for then on the 19th. If you're interested in Crypto Barons, our next episode will be on, will be on the 27th of June. The next show that will be live streaming that is not our June 19th meeting is going to be on June 17th, aka this Wednesday, with N Commander at Hack All N Commander. And after his show this Friday will be that June 19th meeting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to answer one last question, which someone wrote, is her presentation going to be in musical format? That would be amazing. I don't know if it's going to be a musical format. I'm actually going to try to get her to sing some opera on our stream, because I've seen her do it, and she's really good at it. But I know she's going to be probably doing some actual sound samplings and other hardware and software techniques online. Background on her, just to kind of dox her a bit, she's a married lesbian. Again, all the people we have on our show, if you are straight, especially if you're a straight ally, come on to the stream. We're not going to kick you out. We just basically want to highlight LGBTQ people, hackers, as well, especially LGBTQ hackers who are people of color on our stream. But if you're straight, come out. You're going to learn audio engineering and biohacking and fursuits, and we're going to drink and play video games. It's going to be tons of fun. Yes, either way, our thing will not disappoint. So we're going to actually end this basically now, right at 12. Thank you again for tuning in for the first episode of Crypto Barons. If you want to donate during our stream or afterwards for the Trevor Project, which we will be doing, we'll be soliciting donations all the way to July 4th. You can donate at the link that I'm going to post in if you are on one of our streaming platforms. If you are on Twitch, you can scroll down underneath our bio and donate directly there through our widget there. Either way, thank you for all the people who followed us during the stream. Thank you for NeoZ and the anonymous person who has now bumped up our total to $30. Might seem like a long way from 400, but trust me, it went really fast, just like the way our Fred Hutch COVID-19 donations work. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know if we're going to hit 400, but I like to dream, because dreaming is part of hacking. Having goals is part of hacking, so I believe we're going to get there. So anyhow, that was Crypto Barons. Thank you for tuning in on the blockchain. Next episode, 2 Sundays from now, will be about Pincoin and Gridcoin and all the stuff, how they work. I hope you learned more about blockchain than you did before this, whether it's in concept or through coding. Despite all the errors I had with the coding, I had a lot of fun doing this, and I have a year's worth of content, so I'm excited about you guys. Check us out at www.defcon21.org. Follow this channel. Subscribe to all of our social media feeds if you want to see nuclear hacks, us yelling at stupid people, especially on Twitter, among other things. This is Sidepocket, one of the co-founders of DEFCON 201, and this is signing out. See you at the next Crypto Barons. Dirty Jersey represent, and hack the planet! Woo! And we're going to send you guys to Woke in a moment on Twitch, so stay tuned. Bye!